We live our lives by the clock. We mark our days, our seasons, our very existence by its relentless, steady march. But what if time, for a moment, stood still? What if the delicate mechanisms designed to measure every fleeting second fell silent? This video is a journey into the world of those who stand sentinel over time's physical manifestations, the master horologists who dedicate their lives to the intricate dance of gears and springs. Join us as we explore the enduring human fascination with time, the profound history embedded within every tick, and the quiet dedication of the individuals who ensure that the symphony of mechanical timekeeping never fades. From the dawn of consciousness, humanity has wrestled with time. It is the invisible current upon which all existence floats, the silent architect of rise and fall, the relentless force that sculpts mountains into dust and seedlings into forests. We feel its passage in the slowing beat of our own hearts, in the changing light of the seasons, in the memories that deepen and fade. But to truly grasp it, to hold its fleeting essence, has always been an impossible yearning. And so we invented proxies. We began by watching the heavens, seeking order in the celestial dance of sun and moon, stars and planets. The turning of the earth, the phases of the moon, these were our first, grandest clocks, cosmic indicators of a rhythm far beyond our control. But as our world grew more complex, as cities rose and trade flourished, the need for a more granular, a more personal measurement of time became paramount. We sought to bring the vast, indifferent cosmos into our homes, onto our wrists, into the very fabric of our daily lives. With the advent of the mechanical clock, a profound shift occurred. Time was no longer merely observed. It was engineered. We began to translate the grand, sweeping gestures of the universe into intricate arrays of springs and gears, levers and escapements. Each tick, each tock, each chime became a testament to human ingenuity, a deliberate act of measuring, dividing, and, in a profound sense, asserting our will upon the otherwise untamed flow of existence. We built these machines not just to tell us when to plant or when to pray, but to remind us that we, too, were part of a grand design, a structured narrative. Yet, for all our mastery, for all the precision we poured into their creation, time remains stubbornly elusive. Our clocks can measure its passage, but they cannot slow it, hasten it, or halt it. They are mirrors reflecting our hopes and our anxieties, the deadlines we chase, the moments we cherish, the future we anticipate, the past we yearn to revisit. Each ticking mechanism, whether massive tower clock or delicate pocket watch, hums with this inherent tension. Our relentless march forward, perpetually shadowed by the echoes of what has been and the anticipation of what is yet to come. To dedicate one's life to these devices, these intricate guardians of moments, is to embark on a journey into humanity's very soul. It is to understand that a clock, when silent, is merely metal and wood. But when alive, when ticking and chiming, it becomes a conduit. It connects us to the craftsman who first forged its components, to the generations who lived by its rhythm, and to the timeless mystery that continues to propel us all forward. It is to accept that while we cannot control time itself, we can, through careful stewardship and profound respect, ensure that its beautiful, mechanical song continues to resonate, echoing the symphony of human striving, forever. The air in Elias Vance's workshop carried the faint, mingled scents of aged brass, fine lubricating oil, and old-growth timber, a rich, almost liturgical aroma that spoke of patience and precision. Dust motes danced in the solitary shaft of late-afternoon sun that pierced a high window, illuminating a universe of tiny cogs and springs on his workbench. Here, amidst the gentle ticking of a dozen different timepieces awaiting his touch, sat Elias, our protagonist, a man so engrossed in his world that the outside clamor of the city might as well have been a distant whisper. His silhouette, hunched slightly over a custom-made jeweler's bench, was one of profound stillness. A leather apron, scarred with the history of countless repairs and fabrications, protected his tweed waistcoat. His spectacles, perched low on his nose, framed eyes that seemed to possess an almost microscopic focus, capable of discerning flaws invisible to the ordinary gaze. But it was his hands that truly commanded attention. They were not the hands of a young man, nor were they heavily calloused like a laborer's. Instead, they were lean, almost elegant, yet etched with a lifetime of intricate work. Fine lines radiated from knuckles, and faint scars, testaments to slips of a sharp graver or a spring suddenly unleashed, crisscrossed the back of each. These hands, the very instruments of his art, moved with a silent, balletic grace. Currently, they hovered over the exposed heart of a pocket watch, a venerable timepiece from the late 19th century, its golden case open like a clam revealing a pearl. Between the thumb and forefinger of his right hand, a pair of fine, polished steel tweezers, older than most men, delicately held a balance well no larger than a pea. His left hand, steady as an oak, adjusted a microscopic screw with a specialized screwdriver, its tip ground to a hair's breadth. Every movement was economic, deliberate, born of decades of experience and an almost spiritual understanding of mechanical synergy. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation, only an unwavering commitment to the task. Arranged meticulously around him were his tools, each a treasured extension of his will. Tiny files, some no thicker than a needle, lay beside burnishers that gleamed with decades of use. Loops of varying magnification hung from a stand, ready to offer closer scrutiny. Pots of watch oil, each specifically formulated, sat uncorked, waiting for the precise drop to be applied. These weren't mere instruments. They were collaborators, imbued with the quiet history of every intricate repair and restoration Elias had performed. They felt right in his grip, balanced, familiar, responding to the slightest shift in his touch as if they too were alive. He breathed slowly, almost imperceptibly, his concentration so absolute that it seemed to slow the very passage of time within the workshop. The world outside, with its incessant demands and fleeting distractions, ceased to exist. All that mattered was the infinitesimal gap between the pallet stone and the escape wheel, the perfect tension of a hairspring, the rhythmic beat that would bring the tiny engine back to life. He wasn't merely repairing a mechanism. He was restoring a heartbeat, imbuing a lifeless relic with the pulse of time once more. His mind, a vast library of horological knowledge, was sifting through countless variables, anticipating potential faults, cross-referencing schematics held not on paper, but within the intricate pathways of his own memory. Elias Vance was more than a repairman. He was a guardian of time, a silent conversationalist with centuries of mechanical ingenuity. The title Master Horologist wasn't a designation he sought, but one that had settled upon him naturally, like the fine dust on an undisturbed heirloom. It was evident in the reverence with which he handled each component, the almost paternal care he gave to these intricate creations that measured humanity's most precious commodity. His work was a profound act of dedication, a testament to the beauty of precision and the enduring elegance of engineered harmony. A faint click, so soft it might have been imagined, resonated in the quiet room. Elias leaned back slightly, adjusting his spectacles, a flicker of something akin to satisfaction, or perhaps just profound relief, crossing his features. The balance wheel, once inert, now pulsed with a steady, almost imperceptible oscillation. The watch was breathing again. It was a private victory, shared only with the resurrected mechanism and the silent, watchful tools around him. The moment of focused dedication had culminated, not in a grand flourish, but in the gentle, unwavering tick of restored life. The workshop, Elias Vance's true domain, was more than just a room. It was a sanctuary of time, a living museum curated by an artisan's soul. Stepping inside was akin to stepping back into an earlier century, where craftsmanship and patience were not just virtues but necessities. Every surface, every corner, whispered stories of meticulous labor and forgotten eras. The air, heavy and rich, was a blend of subtle fragrances. The dry, woody sweetness of aged mahogany and oak from countless clock cases, the sharp, clean tang of various metallic components, and the distinctive, almost savory undertone of clock oil, a scent that, to Elias, was as comforting as fresh-baked bread. Sunlight, filtered through the grimy panes of high, leaded windows, cut through the ambient gloom in distinct, luminous shafts. Within these golden columns, dust motes danced in an eternal, slow-motion ballet, illuminating the particulate history of every clock that had passed through Elias's hands. They shimmered over workbenches laden with disassembled movements, over shelves stacked floor to ceiling, and across the worn wooden floorboards that creaked softly underfoot. The shelves themselves were a spectacle, not merely storage, but a meticulously organized panorama of horological history. On one, an array of antique clock movements, stripped bare of their cases, gleamed like intricate skeletal sculptures. A Georgian bracket clock movement, its fusee chain still gracefully coiled, rested beside a much larger grandfather clock mechanism, its brass plates darkened with centuries of oxidation, gear trains exposed like the inner workings of a mechanical beast. Elias gestured towards a particularly ornate piece, its escapement a delicate array of levers and jeweled pivots. "This one," he murmured, his voice a low rumble, "is from a Louis XIV cartel clock, French, late 17th century. Notice the verge escapement and the intricate floral engraving on the plates. Each component here was hand-finished, a testament to the artisan's individual touch." Further along, glass-fronted cabinets housed an impressive assortment of unique tools, many of them custom-made, others passed down through generations of watchmakers. There were miniature anvils, no larger than a thumb, alongside tiny vices clamped to the bench, their jaws lined with soft copper to protect delicate components. Small wooden trays held hundreds of screws, pins, and springs, meticulously sorted by size and type, each in its own tiny compartment. Elias's gaze swept over a specific section of his workbench, laden with an assortment of peculiar instruments. He picked up a slender, almost needle-like tool with a finely pointed, hardened steel tip. "This," he explained, holding it up, "is a pivot polisher. Many antique movements used softer steel for their pivots, which could wear down over time. Before rebushing a worn pivot hole, you must ensure the pivot itself is perfectly smooth and cylindrical, otherwise, it will just wear down the new bushing again. It's a task requiring the steadiest of hands and a keen eye." He demonstrated its use with a phantom movement of his wrist, as if polishing an invisible axis. Next, he picked up a tool that resembled a small, flat-bladed chisel, but with a rounded, highly polished edge. "And this is a mainspring winder." Mainsprings, especially in older clocks, can hold immense power. Attempting to unwind or wind them manually without proper tools is an invitation to injury, or worse, to launch a several-foot-long ribbon of hardened steel across the room. A faint, knowing smile played on his lips. This tool allows for controlled winding and unwinding, ensuring both safety and the integrity of the spring. His fingers then found a tool that looked like a pair of elongated calipers, but with fine, curved points. This is a jeweling tool. Many high-quality movements use synthetic rubies or sapphires as bearings to reduce friction and wear. When one of these jewels cracks or wears, it needs replacing. This tool allows for the precise seating and staking of new jewels into the brass plates. It's an operation of such fine tolerances that even a micron of error can mean the difference between a free-running movement and one that binds. The subtle aroma of aged wood, often from the cases of the clocks he restored, mingled with the metallic tang of brass and the distinctive, slightly medicinal scent of specialized clock oils. It was an olfactory tapestry unique to this space, a perfume of painstaking labor and quiet triumph. Every element in the workshop, from the gleaming tools to the silent, waiting movements, contributed to an atmosphere of profound respect for the passage of time and the ingenuity required to measure it. Elias Vance was not just a craftsman. He was a living conduit to a mechanical past, meticulously preserving its echoes in the precise, rhythmic beat of restored time. Elias Vance often found himself explaining to curious patrons, or occasionally to himself, that his work transcended the simple act of repair. It was a philosophy, a creed etched into the very fabric of his days, that he was not merely mending broken gears or replacing worn springs. His true calling, he would articulate with quiet conviction, was the preservation of history itself, to keep the very pulse of the past alive. A clock is not just a device for telling time, he would begin, carefully setting aside a tiny, tarnished screw. It is a chronicle, a tangible record of an era, a craftsman's skill, and the lives it has witnessed. When I open up a movement, I'm not just looking at brass and steel. I'm looking into the mind of its original maker, feeling the echo of their hands as they shaped each part. For Elias, every tick-tock was a whisper from the past, every whirring gear a tiny voice in a grand, mechanical choir. He wasn't interested in making an old clock new again, in the sense of erasing its journey. Rather, he sought to honor its journey, to extend its life while respecting the patina of its age, the subtle signs of its unique story. To him, polishing away every blemish was an act of erasure, a silencing of the narratives embedded within the metal. His goal was always to bring it back to a state of functional elegance, where its historical integrity remained intact, its voice clear and strong once more. He spoke of this philosophy with a reverence bordering on the spiritual, especially when contemplating the intricate heart of an antique timepiece. There's an inherent soul within these old mechanical movements, he asserted, his eyes twinkling behind his spectacles. It's not something you can quantify or measure with instruments, but you feel it. It's the summation of the human ingenuity that conceived it, the meticulous labor that brought it into being, and the countless moments of life it has silently marked. He elaborated, his words painting vivid pictures. Imagine a grandfather clock, standing in a hall for 200 years. It has seen generations pass, births, deaths, celebrations, quiet contemplation. It has marked the passing of empires, scientific discoveries, artistic movements. Each tick isn't just a second. It's a tiny fragment of all those shared human experiences. To let such a mechanism fall silent permanently, to condemn it to the dustbin of forgotten objects, feels like a betrayal of that shared history, a silencing of a very unique voice. This belief drove his meticulous attention to detail. He would spend hours researching the provenance of a particularly challenging piece, seeking out original schematics or contemporary repair notes, striving to understand the precise materials and techniques employed by its original creator. His repairs were never generic. They were bespoke solutions, tailored to the specific needs and historical context of each individual clock or watch. He often fabricated parts by hand, using period-appropriate materials and methods, rather than resort to modern, anachronistic replacements. A new machine-stamped gear might make it run, he explained, but it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't have the same character, the same resonance. It would break the continuity, the lineage of craftsmanship. Elias believed that in preserving these mechanical marvels, he was doing more than just maintaining a hobby or a profession. He was safeguarding a vital connection to human ingenuity, to a time when precision was achieved through skilled hands and dedicated minds, not just automated machinery. He saw himself as a custodian, tasked with ensuring that future generations could still experience the mesmerizing rhythm of a truly mechanical heart, could still touch and hear the very pulse of history ticking away before them. "When I bring a silent clock back to life," he concluded, a faint smile gracing his lips, "it's not just a technical achievement, it's a small triumph over oblivion. It's a reaffirmation that some things are worth saving, worth understanding, worth listening to. Because in listening to them, we listen to ourselves and to all those who came before us." His workshop wasn't just a place of work. It was a testament to his profound reverence for the mechanical soul of time itself. To truly appreciate a timepiece, Elias began, gesturing towards a large, meticulously drawn diagram of a clock's interior pinned to a stand. One must understand the very language it speaks. It's a symphony of forces, a dance of precision orchestrated by a few fundamental principles. Forget, for a moment, the intricate engravings or the shining cases. The magic lies within these core elements. He tapped a pointer lightly against the diagram, the subtle clink echoing in the quiet workshop. At its heart, mechanical timekeeping is about controlling a continuous release of energy. He moved to a separate diagram showing a coiled spring and a descending weight. Every mechanical clock or watch needs a power source. For centuries, this has primarily been one of two things: a descending weight or a coiled mainspring. In larger clocks, like grandfather clocks, he explained, pointing to the representation of a heavy weight hanging from a chain, gravity is our tireless ally. As the weight slowly falls, its potential energy is converted into kinetic energy, pulling a chain or cable that turns the first gear. Simple, yet profoundly effective. His gaze shifted to a representation of a tightly wound spring within a barrel. For watches and smaller clocks, we use the stored energy of a tightly wound mainspring. This spring, under tension, constantly tries to unwind, providing the driving force. He paused, allowing the simplicity of the concept to resonate. Regardless of the source, this raw power needs to be tamed, harnessed. This is where the gear train comes in, Elias continued, sweeping his hand across a detailed depiction of interlocking wheels. Imagine a series of precisely cut gears, each meshing with the next. The power from our weight or spring first turns a large gear, which then drives a smaller one, which in turn drives another, and so on. This cascade of interlocking gears serves two crucial functions. It dramatically reduces the speed of rotation and transmits the force. Each gear ratio is carefully calculated to ensure that, for instance, the hour hand moves exactly 1/12 the speed of the minute hand, and the minute hand 1/60th the speed of the second hand. It's a mechanical multiplication of time, turning a slowly falling weight or an unwinding spring into the rapid, continuous motion we see on the dial. He then guided attention to what he called the true heart of regulation, the oscillator. For stationary clocks like this one, he said, tapping an open mantel clock on his bench, we employ the reliable consistency of a pendulum. He pointed to a diagram illustrating a pendulum swinging freely. A pendulum, once set in motion, swings back and forth with a remarkably consistent rhythm. This rhythm, its period of oscillation, is primarily determined by its length. A longer pendulum swings slower, a shorter one faster. It's a natural harmonic motion, incredibly stable and predictable. For portable timepieces, where a swinging pendulum is impractical, we use a balance wheel paired with a tiny, coiled hairspring. He held up a delicate balance wheel, no larger than his thumbnail. This combination creates a miniature oscillating system, vibrating back and forth with its own inherent frequency, much like a tiny, perfectly tuned metronome. Now, the ingenious part, Elias declared, his voice deepening slightly with emphasis, the escapement, He moved to a diagram that meticulously illustrated an anchor escapement interacting with a toothed escape wheel. This is the brain of the operation, the vital link between the untamed power of the gear train and the steady rhythm of the oscillator. The escapement performs two critical tasks. First, it locks the gear train, preventing the weight or spring from simply unwinding all its energy in an instant. Then, it unlocks it for a tiny fraction of a second, allowing one tooth of the escape wheel to escape. As it escapes, it gives a tiny, precisely timed impulse, a gentle nudge, to the pendulum or balance wheel, just enough to keep it oscillating against the inevitable forces of friction. That familiar tick-tock you hear? That's the sound of the escapement locking and unlocking, the controlled release of time, one precise increment at a time. Elias leaned back, surveying his diagrams with a quiet satisfaction. So, in essence, you have power from a weight or spring, transmitted and geared down by the gear train, regulated by the consistent beat of the oscillator, and precisely released by the escapement. Each component, though distinct, is interdependent, working in perfect harmony. It's a testament to human ingenuity, a mechanical marvel that breathes life into the abstract concept of time, giving it a tangible, rhythmic pulse that we can see, hear, and feel. He smiled faintly, and that, my friends, is the fundamental dance of mechanical time. In Elias Vance's workshop, the tools were not mere instruments. They were extensions of his mind and hand, each possessing a silent history of countless repairs and ingenious solutions. They lay arranged with almost surgical precision across his bench, gleaming softly under the workshop lights, an arsenal specifically designed to conquer the microscopic challenges of horology. This collection was a testament to both ancient craftsmanship and Elias's personal commitment to perfection. A symphony of steel, brass, and wood, each piece honed for extraordinary precision. He began his tour with the smallest, yet arguably most crucial members of his arsenal, the ultrafine files. Reaching for a wooden block holding an array of slender tools, he selected one, barely thicker than a sewing needle, its cutting surfaces microscopically ridged. These, he explained, holding it up for scrutiny, are not your common machinist's files. These are barrette files, knife files, pillar files, each designed for a specific purpose and an almost surgical degree of material removal. When you're shaping a new pivot that needs to fit into a jewel bearing with a tolerance of just a few microns, there's no room for error. A single misplaced stroke and you've ruined the part. It's a dance between pressure and angle, feeling the metal yield, rather than just seeing it. The file felt impossibly light, yet in Elias's experienced grip, it became a surgical instrument of remarkable power. Next, his hand drifted to a rack adorned with various high-magnification loupes. He picked up a monocle-style loupe, its polished glass glinting. While my eyes are still keen, he chuckled. The world of watchmaking demands greater scrutiny. He explained that he possessed a range of magnifications, from 3x for general observation to an astonishing 20x for the most minute details of escapement adjustments or hairspring truing. The loupe isn't just about making things bigger, he clarified. It's about isolating the problem, stripping away the visual clutter, and allowing your focus to narrow to a single point of interaction, a single flaw. He demonstrated, placing the loupe in his eye socket, his right eye now a magnified sphere of intense concentration. His gaze then moved to a neatly organized row of custom miniature screwdrivers. These weren't mass-produced sets. Each one was a work of art. The steel blades, some finer than a human hair, were precisely ground and hardened, designed to fit the unique slots of antique screws without deforming them. Standard screwdrivers, even jewelers' sets, are often too coarse, Elias stated, picking up a screwdriver with a blade barely visible to the naked eye. Old watch screws are incredibly delicate. Their slots are often shallow and narrow, An ill-fitting driver will cam out, chewing up the screw head, potentially damaging the plate, and destroying a piece of history. These are often made from scratch, or carefully reground and polished to match the specific screw I'm working with. It's about respecting the original craftsmanship, even down to the smallest fastener. Nearby, clamped to his main workbench, was a selection of bespoke vices. One, made of hardened steel, was no larger than a thimble, capable of securely holding a balance staff or a tiny gear wheel. Another, crafted from brass, featured soft, parallel jaws that could grip delicate plates without marring their surface. These vices are essential, Elias noted, gently demonstrating how to open and close one with a miniature key. When you're working with components that can be lost in a breath, stability is paramount. A secure hold means precise work. Any wobble, any movement, means risking irreparable damage to a centuries-old part. Finally, he pointed to a corner of his workshop where a small, surprisingly robust precision miniature lathe stood. It was an old machine, powered by a leather belt connecting it to a small electric motor, but its precision was undeniable. Sometimes, Elias said, a glimmer of pride in his eyes, a part is simply beyond repair, or a component is missing entirely. This is where the lathe comes in. I can turn new pivots, fashion tiny arbors, even create entire gear wheels from raw brass stock. It's a painstaking process, requiring micrometric accuracy. You measure, you cut, you measure again, often to within 1/100th of a millimeter. It's the ultimate test of artisanal skill, taking raw material and giving it the precise form and function required to breathe life back into a silent mechanism. Elias surveyed his tools, a quiet satisfaction settling on his features. Each of these instruments, he concluded, is an extension of my intent. They allow me to translate my understanding of horology into tangible action, to touch the very essence of these mechanisms. Without them, and the skill to wield them, the work of preserving mechanical time would be an impossible dream. His arsenal was not just a collection of objects. It was the physical manifestation of a lifetime dedicated to precision, patience, and the profound art of keeping time. The gentle, rhythmic symphony of Elias Vance's workshop was abruptly punctuated by the insistent trill of an antique telephone, its brass bell resonating with an urgency that rarely disturbed the quiet sanctity of his domain. Elias, in the midst of meticulously oiling a centuries-old verge escapement, paused, his hand hovering, before slowly reaching for the receiver. The voice on the other end, though muffled by static, carried a clear note of distress and palpable concern. "Mr. Vance? Elias? It's Mrs. Albright, Agnes Albright." The voice stammered, a tremor underlying her usual calm demeanor. "It's about the pendulum of peace." Elias's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. The pendulum of peace was not just any clock. It was a magnificent, early 18th century English long case clock, nearly 8 feet tall, crafted from highly figured burr walnut. It had been commissioned by a renowned philanthropist and peace advocate, given to a historical society, and had stood as the chronological heart of the Albright family's ancestral home for nearly 200 years. More than that, it was a profound symbol. Each generation of Albrights, for 2 centuries, had started their day by its chime and ended it by its final nightly strike, a constant, unwavering presence through times of joy and sorrow. It was the very pulse of their family history. "Mrs. Albright," Elias responded, his voice calm, betraying none of the sudden internal shift that the clock's name had invoked. "What seems to be the trouble?" A sigh, heavy with worry, came through the line. "It stopped, Elias, completely, just silent. This morning, when I came downstairs, it wasn't ticking. The pendulum was still. I wound it fully just last week, as I always do. It's never done this before. Not in my lifetime, not in my grandmother's. It's simply dead." The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken sentiment. For Agnes Albright, the clock was more than an antique. It was a living member of her family, a silent witness to generations, now inexplicably fallen quiet. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, picturing the clock in his mind's eye. He had seen the pendulum of peace many years ago during a consultation, a memory of its intricate, gilded dial and smooth, robust movement still vivid. It was a sturdy, beautifully engineered piece, known for its reliability. For it to simply cease functioning without any obvious external cause was unusual and suggested a problem of a more subtle, perhaps insidious, nature. "I understand, Mrs. Albright," Elias said, his tone reassuring. "Please don't try to force anything. Do not attempt to move the hands or wind it further if it resists. Just leave it as it is." He felt a familiar prickle of anticipation, a calling to a challenge he understood on a visceral level. This wasn't merely a repair job, it was a rescue mission. The sentimental value of the pendulum of peace was immeasurable, woven into the very identity of the Albright lineage. Its silence was a void, a missing beat in the rhythm of their lives. Can you come, Elias?" Her voice pleaded, tinged with hope. "As soon as possible? Feels wrong without it. The house feels empty." "Of course, Mrs. Albright," he affirmed, already planning his schedule, his mind sifting through potential culprits for such a sudden cessation. A dropped weight, a broken suspension spring, a foreign object lodged in the gear train. The possibilities were numerous, the diagnosis requiring careful, systematic investigation. "I will prepare my field kit and be there first thing tomorrow morning. I will do everything in my power to restore its voice." Hanging up the receiver, Elias stood for a moment, the silence of his workshop now deepened by the echo of Mrs. Albright's distress. The urgency of the call stirred something profound within him. It wasn't just about fixing a mechanism. It was about mending a rupture in a family's history, rekindling a cherished connection to the past. The pendulum of peace was not just a clock. It was a repository of memories, a keeper of time for a lineage. Its silence was a challenge, a summons to the very core of Elias's philosophy. To preserve, not just to repair. The stage was set. His initial repair project, imbued with deep personal and historical significance, awaited him. The next morning, Elias Vance arrived at the imposing gates of the Albright estate, a sense of quiet determination settling over him. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke, a stark contrast to the mingled aromas of his workshop. He carried his field kit, a bespoke leather case filled with a carefully curated selection of tools, each padded and secured, ready for the delicate operation ahead. The stately home, a grand Georgian edifice, seemed to hold its breath, its usual vibrant life muted by the silence of its most cherished timepiece. Agnes Albright met him at the door, her face etched with concern. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Elias," she said, her voice hushed, as if speaking too loudly might further disturb the venerable mechanism. She led him through silent halls, past family portraits and gleaming antique furniture, the absence of the clock's rhythmic tick-tock creating a palpable void. The pendulum of peace stood majestically in the grand hall, an 8-foot sentinel of polished burr walnut and shimmering brass. Its long, slender waist, adorned with delicate inlay, tapered towards a hood crowned with finials. But its most defining feature, the long brass pendulum that usually swung with such serene authority, hung utterly still. Elias approached it with a respectful gravity, not unlike a physician approaching a beloved, ailing patient. His examination began with the exterior, a meticulous scan for any obvious anomalies. He ran his fingertips along the case, checking for loose joints or recent damage. His eyes, trained by decades of observation, swept over the dial, its Roman numerals and intricate hands frozen at 6:47. He tried the winding squares. The one for the going train, the timekeeping mechanism, was taut, indicating it was fully wound, confirming Mrs. Albright's account. The strike train winding square also felt correctly engaged. No external signs of trauma. Then came the delicate process of opening the clock's hood. With slow, deliberate movements, Elias unlatched the front panel, revealing the intricate brass and steel heart within. The exposed movement, usually a vibrant tableau of oscillating parts, was utterly motionless. The polished brass plates, the gleaming wheels, the slender escapement, all were frozen. A sudden, silent tableau. Elias leaned in, his ear close to the exposed mechanism, a high magnification loupe already perched in his eye. He wasn't just looking. He was listening for minute sounds, the subtle whispers that could betray a hidden fault. The absence of even the faintest residual hum or click told him much. There was no grinding, no broken spring rattling, no loose pin. Just silence. He then began a systematic, almost forensic inspection. His gaze tracked the path of the going train, from the mainspring barrel to the escapement. He gently tried to move the great wheel, the first wheel in the train. It resisted, confirming the mainspring was indeed wound and engaged. This ruled out a common issue like a slipped clutch or a broken winding click. Next, his focus narrowed to the escapement, the delicate mechanism that regulates the release of power. He gently attempted to rotate the escape wheel with a fine brass probe. It wouldn't budge. This immediately told him that the jam was after the main power source and before or at the escapement. The gear train was locked solid at this critical juncture. He meticulously checked the tiny pivots of each wheel, using his loupe to search for any signs of excessive wear, bent arbors, or debris. He looked for a broken tooth on any of the gears, a surprisingly common culprit. Nothing. The jewel bearings were intact. The delicate suspension spring, from which the pendulum hung, was unbroken. As he continued his slow, methodical sweep, his eyes caught a subtle, almost imperceptible detail. Nestled deep within the framework of the going train, between two meshing gears, was a minuscule, dark speck. It was barely visible, a foreign object no larger than a grain of sand, yet positioned perfectly to wedge the two gears motionless. With a custom-made pair of ultrafine tweezers, Elias carefully, almost surgically, extracted the tiny intruder. It appeared to be a minuscule shard of dried wood, perhaps from the clock's own case, or an old, forgotten splinter that had vibrated loose over decades, finally finding its way into the intricate dance of the gears. He held the speck up, a tiny, almost invisible culprit for such a profound silence. A rogue particle, Elias murmured, more to himself than to Mrs. Albright, who watched with bated breath. He then gently nudged the great wheel again. This time with a soft, almost ethereal sigh, the entire gear train moved. Then, with a hesitant, almost miraculous tick, the pendulum began to swing. Tock! Tick! Tock! Mrs. Albright gasped, a hand flying to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. The familiar rhythm filled the grand hall once more, a comforting, unwavering heartbeat. Elias, a faint smile on his lips, closed the hood. The pendulum of peace, once silent, now sang its timeless song, its illness deciphered, its voice restored. His initial repair project, a testament to subtle observation and methodical investigation, had breathed life back into a cherished sentinel of time. The pendulum of peace, though revived from its silent slumber, still required Elias's full attention. The rogue splinter, while having halted its operation, was merely a symptom of deeper needs. Years of continuous service, even with careful winding, inevitably led to the drying of oils, the accumulation of fine dust, and the subtle wear on pivots and bearings. True restoration demanded a full disassembly, cleaning, and re-oiling. Back in his workshop, the grand clock movement was carefully extracted from its case, a delicate operation in itself, requiring two people to lift the heavy brass mechanism from its wooden confines without jarring the delicate components. Placed on a specially designed support frame on Elias's workbench, the heart of the pendulum of peace lay exposed, awaiting its intricate surgery. Elias began not with a tool but with a camera. Every angle, every unique connection, every precisely fitted part was documented with a series of high-resolution photographs. Then came the hand-drawn sketches, capturing specific nuances that even a photograph might miss: the subtle bend of a lever, the exact alignment of a jewel, the orientation of a specific washer. Alongside this visual record, he meticulously jotted down notes in a leather-bound logbook. Albright long case, movement number 743. Initial inspection points. This initial phase, often overlooked by less experienced repairmen, was critical. Disassembly without proper documentation, Elias's voice echoed in a quiet voiceover, is an invitation to chaos. These mechanisms are complex puzzles, and reassembly depends entirely on remembering how each piece fits into the grand design. With the documentation complete, the true work of dismantling began. Elias donned his loupe, its magnified lens a window into a miniature world of precise engineering. His first target, the hands and dial. Using a custom-made hand-lifting tool, he gently pried the minute and hour hands from their respective arbors, placing them carefully in a compartmentalized tray. The brass dial, with its intricate moon phase and calendar apertures, followed, revealing the naked face of the movement's front plate. Next came the gears of the motion work, the smaller wheels that translate the minute hand's rotation into the slower movement of the hour hand. Each wheel, each pin, each washer was carefully removed, cleaned with a specialized brush, and placed into designated compartments in his tray, meticulously ordered from left to right, front to back, just as they had been removed. Every component has its precise position, Elias emphasized, his voice a steady drone. Mixing them, even slightly, can lead to subtle friction, imprecise timing, or worse, irreparable damage during reassembly. He then focused on the going train, the primary power transmission system. With miniature screwdrivers, he painstakingly removed the screws holding the brass plates of the movement together. This was a moment of supreme delicacy. The plates, once freed, could spring apart slightly, releasing the coiled energy of the mainsprings, potentially sending tiny components flying or damaging pivot points. With one hand gently pressing the plates together, his other hand slowly eased the tension from the mainspring barrels using a bespoke winding key, allowing the powerful springs to unwind in a controlled manner. The process was almost meditative, a slow, deliberate dance of anticipation and release. Once the tension was safely neutralized, Elias carefully separated the front and back plates. The gear train, once a unified, dynamic system, was now laid bare. Each wheel, each pinion, each arbor, each jeweled bearing was individually removed. The clicks and ratchets that prevent backward movement, the pallets of the escapement, the balance staff, every component, regardless of its size, was treated with the same reverence. He used ultrafine tweezers and small brass probes, never allowing his bare fingers to touch the delicate surfaces, ensuring no oils or impurities were transferred. Gentle handling is paramount, Elias reiterated, his voice a soft command. These are not mere pieces of metal. Many are handmade, unique, and irreplaceable. A dropped wheel, a bent pivot, a scratched plate, these are not just cosmetic flaws. They are injuries that can compromise the very integrity of the clock. As the last component, a tiny, almost invisible screw, was placed into its compartment. The once complex, humming movement was reduced to an ordered collection of individual parts. The workbench was now a mosaic of gleaming brass and polished steel, awaiting its transformation. The careful disassembly was complete, setting the stage for the meticulous cleaning and eventual reassembly that would give the pendulum of peace a new lease on life, ensuring its pulse would beat strongly for generations to come. The meticulous disassembly of the pendulum of peace continued, a methodical choreography of brass, steel, and human precision. Each component, from the grandest gear to the tiniest screw, was removed, cleaned, and catalogued. Elias worked in a focused silence, the only sounds the soft clink of metal against brass, the gentle scrape of a cleaning brush, and the almost imperceptible hum of his concentration. He had separated the front and back plates, carefully disengaged the gear trains, and was now meticulously cleaning the mainspring barrels. It was during this stage, as he carefully removed the mainspring from the going train barrel, that his fingers brushed against something unexpected. Nestled deep within the barrel, beneath the coiled steel mainspring and secured by a clever, almost invisible catch on the inside wall, was a small, folded piece of parchment. It was no larger than a postage stamp, aged to a fragile, brittle ochre. Elias paused, his breath held. This was not a part of the mechanism. It was an intentional concealment. His trained eye, accustomed to spotting the subtle irregularities that distinguish a repair from an original feature, recognized the cunning of its placement. He carefully extracted it with ultrafine tweezers, his movements slow and deliberate, fearing the fragile paper might disintegrate at his touch. Unfolding it revealed a minuscule, handwritten inscription in a faded sepia ink, almost illegible with age. He held it under his highest magnification loupe, adjusting the light until the delicate strokes of the script became discernible. It was a single line, elegantly penned. Let not the shadows of this age obscure the light of the next. For those who seek peace, let this pendulum ever swing. Beneath the inscription, barely visible, were the initials J.A. 1753. Elias felt a profound sense of connection ripple through him. J. John Albright, the original patriarch who had commissioned the clock, the renowned philanthropist whose vision of peace had given the clock its enduring name. The year 1753, a time of burgeoning enlightenment, yet also simmering conflicts across Europe. This wasn't just a hidden message. It was a testament, a private prayer embedded within the very heart of the mechanism, intended for discovery only by someone who truly understood its inner workings, someone who cared enough to fully disassemble it. A whisper from the past, Elias murmured, his voice hushed with reverence. A direct message, spanning centuries. He knew the general history of the Albright family and John Albright, a man ahead of his time, a Quaker merchant who believed passionately in international diplomacy and the power of reasoned discourse over conflict. The pendulum of peace was not merely a decorative object for him. It was a symbolic anchor in his home, a constant reminder of his ideals. The inscription, hidden within the mainspring barrel, the very source of the clock's energy, spoke volumes. It was a plea, a hope that the clock's continuous, unwavering motion would be a metaphor for humanity's persistent pursuit of peace, even amidst the turmoil of any given age. This discovery was not unusual for Elias, though each one carried its own unique resonance. He had found small pressed flowers, locks of hair, tiny coins, and other inscriptions within the secret compartments and hidden nooks of ancient timepieces. Each time, it was like lifting a veil, getting a direct glimpse into the private world of the clock's original owners or makers. These weren't random inclusions. They were intentional deposits, silent communions across time, linking the past to the present through the enduring medium of the clock. This clock, the pendulum of peace, Elias explained in a reflective voiceover, holding the tiny parchment with utmost care, was built not just to tell time, but to embody an ideal. John Albright, its first owner, commissioned it during a period of intense political upheaval. He believed that even as the world around him was often fractured by war and discord, the relentless, steady beat of the clock could symbolize an enduring hope for harmony. Hiding this message within the very core of the mechanism, it wasn't just a private thought. It was a secret charge, a philosophical instruction passed down through the heart of the clock itself. The tiny fragment of parchment, now placed carefully in a protective capsule, became another layer in the clock's rich narrative. It transformed the restoration from a purely mechanical task into an act of historical guardianship, a continuation of John Albright's quiet legacy. Elias felt an even deeper connection to the pendulum of peace, understanding now that he wasn't just bringing a mechanism back to life. He was helping to amplify a centuries-old whisper of hope, allowing its quiet wisdom to resonate once more through time. This hidden relic was a powerful reminder that some stories are told not in books, but in the enduring, intricate heart of a master horologist's domain. With the pendulum of peace meticulously disassembled and its poignant historical message safely catalogued, Elias moved to the next critical phase, the art of deep cleaning. This wasn't a mere dusting. It was an intensive, multi-stage regimen designed to strip away decades, sometimes centuries, of accumulated grime, oxidized metals, and hardened, ineffective lubricants. Think of it as preparing a canvas, Elias explained, arranging the trays of components on a clean, lint-free cloth. Before we can restore the delicate interplay of forces, every surface must be pristine, every pivot flawlessly smooth. Impurities are the enemies of precision. The journey to pristine began with the rough removal of heavy, solidified grease and oil. Elias used specialized solvents and stiff bristle brushes, working carefully under his loupe, to physically scrape away the most stubborn deposits from plates and larger wheels. This was a painstaking process, ensuring no metal was scratched or delicate engravings marred. Old lubricants, over time, don't just become ineffective, he noted. They turn into abrasive pastes, accelerating wear on pivots and bushings. It's like having sandpaper within your movement. Once the bulk of the grime was removed, the components were ready for their ultrasonic bath. Elias carefully placed the smaller gears, pivots, and screws into a finely meshed basket. Larger plates and components were suspended individually. He lowered the basket into a tank filled with a specialized, non-corrosive cleaning solution. Switching on the machine, a low, persistent hum filled the workshop. The solution, agitated by high-frequency sound waves, began to vibrate, creating microscopic bubbles that imploded on the surface of each component. This cavitation action gently yet powerfully dislodged hidden dirt and residual oils from every crevice, every tiny hole, every intricate tooth. The ultrasonic cleaner is a marvel, Elias commented, watching the swirling solution. It reaches places no brush or hand can, but it's also a tool that demands caution. Too long, or the wrong solution, and you can damage delicate finishes or even loosen riveted components. After a precisely timed cycle, he removed the basket, revealing parts that had shed much of their dull, grimy veneer, beginning to gleam with a renewed luster. The components were then rinsed thoroughly, first in distilled water, then in a volatile, fast-drying solvent to ensure no moisture remained. Even the slightest speck of water, left to sit, could lead to rust and ruin. But the ultrasonic bath was just the beginning. The heart of the transformation lay in the meticulous hand polishing of individual gears, pivots, and bearing surfaces. Elias selected a tiny, soft brass wire brush, almost like a miniature bottle brush, to clean the space between each gear tooth. Then, using progressively finer polishing compounds applied with tiny felt or wood sticks, he began the painstaking process of burnishing pivots to a mirror-like finish. He demonstrated the technique on a gear wheel, its pivot barely visible to the naked eye. Holding it securely in a small pin vise, he applied a microscopic dab of polishing paste. With a gentle, rotating motion, he worked the pivot against a piece of polished steel, then a tiny buffing wheel on a flex shaft. Under the loupe, the dull, slightly pitted surface of the pivot slowly transformed, reflecting light like a tiny jewel. The smoother the pivot, Elias explained, the less friction it experiences in its bearing. Reduced friction means less wear, greater efficiency, and ultimately, a more accurate and reliable timepiece. The brass plates themselves received similar attention. Using soft cloths and specialized polishing compounds, Elias carefully brought out the original gleam of the metal, always careful not to erase any original markings or patinas that lent the clock its character. Oxidation, a greenish-black film that often built up over decades, was gently removed, revealing the warm, golden hue of the underlying brass. The transformation was striking. Components that had been dull, dark, and caked with solidified residue now lay sparkling, reflecting the light like newly minted coinage. The gear teeth, once obscured, now stood out in sharp, clean relief. The intricately engraved numbers on the mainspring barrels, previously almost invisible, now shone clearly. "This isn't about making it look new," Elias reiterated, surveying the gleaming array of parts. "It's about restoring its functionality to its original glory, allowing the mechanism to move freely, precisely, and with minimal resistance. Each polished surface, each clean tooth, each cleared pivot hole, they all contribute to the harmonious symphony that is mechanical timekeeping. It's the physical manifestation of patience and precision, ensuring that the pendulum of peace can beat strongly once more, its voice clear and true for another century." The workbench, once a scene of intricate disassembly, was now a dazzling display of resurrected components, ready for their grand reassembly. The meticulous cleaning of the pendulum of Piece's hundreds of components was complete, and Elias Vance began the careful process of inspection before reassembly. Each part, now gleaming, was scrutinized under his loupe, searching for any subtle wear, hairline cracks, or deformities that might have been hidden by grime. It was during this phase, as he meticulously examined the intricate going train, that he found it. A tiny, almost imperceptible stress fracture in one of the escape wheel's pallet jewels. The pallet jewels, typically made of synthetic ruby or sapphire, are tiny, exquisitely polished stones that regulate the interaction between the escape wheel and the pendulum. They are the points of contact that receive the impulse from the escapement, driving the pendulum, and simultaneously locking the escape wheel. This particular jewel, meant to be perfectly smooth and unyielding, had developed a microscopic fissure, likely from centuries of continuous, repetitive impact. While not yet completely broken, it was a ticking time bomb, a weak point that would soon compromise the clock's accuracy and eventually lead to its failure. This, Elias explained, holding the tiny, fractured jewel under a high magnification microscope, is a problem that cannot be ignored. A cracked jewel will create uneven friction, cause erratic timing, and eventually shatter, bringing the entire clock to a halt. The challenge was significant. The pendulum of peace was an early 18th century English clock. The dimensions and setting of its original pallet jewels were unique, handcrafted to fit its specific escapement. Modern, mass-produced pallet jewels, even if of the correct type, would likely not fit precisely, requiring modifications that Elias considered an affront to the clock's historical integrity. There was no readily available replacement. This was where Elias's true mastery, his fabrication skill, came into play. He would craft a precise new component from scratch. His first step was to carefully extract the damaged jewel from its setting, using specialized tools to avoid further damage to the brass pallet fork that held it. With the fractured jewel removed, he could take exact measurements. Its length, width, thickness, and, crucially, the precise angles of its working surfaces. These angles were paramount, dictating the duration and efficiency of the impulse imparted to the pendulum. Elias selected a small, rectangular block of synthetic ruby from a carefully curated stock of raw jewel materials. These aren't natural rubies, he noted, but lab-grown corundum, identical in hardness and crystalline structure, ensuring longevity and consistent performance. He secured the tiny ruby block in a specialized vise on his miniature lathe, a robust, precision machine despite its size. With the lathe spinning at a precise, controlled speed, Elias began the painstaking process of shaping the jewel. Using ultrafine diamond-tipped cutting tools, he slowly, almost imperceptibly, abraded the ruby. He worked in microscopic increments, stopping frequently to measure with micrometers capable of reading to the thousandth of a millimeter, and to inspect the developing angles under his highest magnification. The process was agonizingly slow, demanding unwavering concentration and an almost tactile understanding of the material. A single misjudgment, too much pressure, or a moment of inattention, and the brittle ruby could shatter, forcing him to start anew. "It's like sculpting light," Elias murmured, his face close to the lathe, his breath held. Each facet, each angle must be perfect. It's not just about aesthetics. It's about the very physics of the escapement. The impulse must be delivered cleanly, efficiently, without drag or rebound. After hours of work, the raw ruby block began to resemble the intricate geometry of a pallet jewel. But cutting was only half the battle. The working surfaces had to be polished to an incredible, almost frictionless sheen. He switched to progressively finer polishing compounds, using tiny felt wheels and even polished wooden sticks, each impregnated with diamond paste. Under the microscope, the surfaces slowly transformed from a dull, abraded texture to a brilliant, mirror-like finish, reflecting every detail of the light above. Finally, the new jewel was complete, a tiny, perfectly formed rectangle of glistening ruby, identical in every dimension and angle to the original, yet free of any flaw. With utmost care, Elias then precisely pressed the new jewel back into the brass pallet fork, securing it with specialized jewel cement, ensuring its alignment was absolutely perfect. He held up the repaired pallet fork, the new ruby jewel gleaming, a testament to his artisanal skill. "This isn't just a replacement part," Elias concluded, a quiet satisfaction in his voice. "This is a continuation. It ensures that the integrity of the original design is preserved, that the pendulum of peace continues to tick with the same character and precision its maker intended, free from an anachronistic insert. It is the art of crafting the irreplaceable, a bridge between centuries of craftsmanship." The most challenging hurdle had been overcome, and the clock was one step closer to its triumphant reassembly. Even for a master like Elias Vance, the path to horological perfection was rarely without its trials. The intricate world of clock repair, with its microscopic tolerances and centuries-old materials, frequently presented moments of truth, challenges that tested not just his skill, but his patience, ingenuity, and deep-seated mental fortitude. These were the junctures where the clock, almost defiantly, refused to cooperate, demanding every ounce of Elias's experience. One such moment arrived during the delicate reassembly of the pendulum of peace. With the newly fabricated ruby jewel perfectly seated and all other components gleaming from their deep clean, Elias was meticulously reattaching the motion work to the front plate. A particularly tiny screw, no larger than a poppy seed, was responsible for securing the minute wheel bridge. He had carefully aligned the bridge, inserted the screw, and begun to turn it with a custom-ground miniature screwdriver. It turned a quarter of a rotation, then abruptly ceased. Elias frowned, his brow furrowing beneath his loupe. He applied a touch more pressure, gently twisting. Nothing. The screw was stubborn, refusing to engage further. A lesser repairman might have forced it, stripping the delicate thread in the brass plate, a catastrophic error that would require complex and time-consuming repair. But Elias had learned long ago that brute force was the enemy of precision. He slowly withdrew the screw, inspecting its minuscule threads under magnification. They were perfect, clean. He then examined the screw hole in the brass plate. Two appeared clear. He tried a different, slightly smaller, yet compatible screw. Two caught after a few turns. The problem was not the screw or the hole, but something far more insidious. A microscopic misalignment, a fractional degree off-center that was causing the threads to bind. This was a classic moment of truth. Elias leaned back, exhaling slowly. He knew that to proceed, he needed absolute, unwavering alignment. He tried again, holding the tiny bridge with ultrafine tweezers, his other hand guiding the screw. Still, it caught. He could feel the frustration bubbling, a subtle tension in his shoulders. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and reopened them, clearing his mind. Patience, he muttered to himself. Always patience. He removed the bridge again and, instead of relying solely on his fingers, positioned a small, flexible clamp over the bridge, gently securing it to the plate. This provided a perfectly stable, hands-free hold. Then, with a tiny, specialized reaming tool, almost a microscopic tap, he very gently chased the threads in the brass plate, ensuring they were perfectly clear and open. Finally, he reinserted the original screw, applying minimal pressure, letting the screw find its natural path. This time, with a satisfying, almost imperceptible turn, the screw engaged, smoothly winding home. A small victory, yet one that confirmed his methodical approach. Another challenge arose when adjusting the newly installed ruby pallet jewel. Even with the new jewel perfectly fabricated and seated, the drop, the tiny, precise amount of play between the pallet and the escape wheel was not quite right. The clock ticked, but with a subtle, uneven beat, a whisper of disharmony. Elias spent nearly an hour, meticulously checking the jewel's entry and exit angles, making microscopic adjustments to the pallet fork with specialized bending pliers. Each adjustment was minuscule, requiring him to remove the pallet fork, make a minute bend, then reinsert it and test the drop, listening intently to the clock's rhythm. The process was iterative, demanding relentless attention to detail and an acute auditory sense. It's a constant dialogue with the mechanism, Elias explained, his voice tight with concentration. It tells you when it's not happy. You listen, you adjust, and you try again. Sometimes, it feels like the clock is actively resisting you, demanding an even deeper understanding. The mental resilience required for such work was immense. It wasn't just about technical skill. It was about the ability to remain calm under pressure, to diagnose complex problems from subtle cues, and to persist through repetitive, often frustrating, trial and error. Each moment of truth was a test, a demand for absolute mastery, where the smallest error could undo hours of painstaking work. Finally, after numerous micro-adjustments, the clock's tick-tock settled into a smooth, even, robust rhythm. Elias leaned back, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. The frustration had dissipated, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. The challenges had been met, the fortitude had held, and the pendulum of peace was one step closer to its triumphant return, its heart now beating with unwavering precision. With the pendulum of peace meticulously cleaned, its new jewel installed, and all components reassembled, Elias Vance embarked on the final, critical stage of its restoration: precision lubrication. This wasn't a casual application of oil. It was a highly specialized science, an art form that demanded an understanding of material properties, micromechanics, and the subtle interplay of forces within a clock. Lubrication, Elias stated, holding up a minuscule bottle of clear, viscous fluid, is the lifeblood of a mechanical movement. Without it, even the most perfectly machined parts would quickly seize, wear down, and ultimately fail. It's the invisible guardian of longevity and accuracy. He explained that horological lubricants are far removed from general-purpose oils. They are synthetic formulations, painstakingly developed to resist oxidation, maintain viscosity across temperature fluctuations, and remain stable for decades without gumming up or evaporating. Each type of oil or grease had a specific purpose and location within the movement. You wouldn't use engine oil in a precision instrument, Elias clarified. Similarly, you wouldn't use balance staff oil on a mainspring, and vice versa. Each part demands a precise blend, a tailored slickness. Elias began with the high friction points, the pivots of the mainspring barrel arbors, and the winding mechanism. For these, he chose a specialized high-viscosity grease. With a tiny, polished brass applicator no thicker than a pin, he applied a minute amount, a barely perceptible film, to the arbors before they were inserted into their bushings. Extreme close-up shots revealed the grease, glistening like a microscopic dewdrop, spread perfectly evenly around the polished steel. "Too much grease here," Elias explained in a quiet voiceover, "and it creates drag, impeding the power flow. Too little, and you risk metal-on-metal wear." His focus then shifted to the critical pivots of the gear train, the slender axes of the wheels that transmit power. For these, he employed a lighter, yet incredibly stable synthetic clock oil. Dipping a fine oiler, a tool with an impossibly slender tip, into the amber liquid, he transferred a single microscopic droplet to the top of a pivot. The oil, driven by capillary action, immediately spread into the tiny gap between the pivot and its jeweled bearing. "This is where accuracy lives or dies," Elias affirmed, his breath held. "These are high-speed, low-load points. The oil here must reduce friction without impeding movement, and it must stay exactly where it's put, resisting migration." The close-up footage showed the oil's perfect meniscus, a tiny, glistening dome holding its form around the pivot, a testament to its surface tension and Elias's steady hand. The escapement, the rhythmic heart of the clock, demanded an even more delicate touch. For the pallet jewels and the escape-will teeth, Elias used an ultrafine, super-low viscosity oil. The escapement experiences impacts, not just continuous rotation, he explained. The oil here needs to be exceptionally light to minimize any resistance, yet durable enough to withstand the constant microshocks. It's the highest precision lubrication point in the entire clock. With an oiler so fine it was almost invisible, Elias placed the tiniest possible speck of oil on the impulse surfaces of the newly installed ruby pallet jewel. The oil was almost imperceptible, a mere shimmer, yet absolutely vital. He also applied a specific oil to the delicate suspension spring of the pendulum, ensuring frictionless swing, and a tiny dab of different grease to the calendar mechanism, where heavier loads and slower movements necessitated a more robust lubricant. Throughout the entire process, Elias's movements were deliberate, economical, and imbued with absolute precision. He used a fresh, lint-free cloth for every dip, every application, preventing cross-contamination. He cleaned his oilers meticulously after each use. His loop remained fixed in his eye, ensuring every single droplet, every microscopic film, was placed with absolute perfection. The science of slickness, Elias concluded, surveying the now fully lubricated movement, its gears and pivots gleaming with renewed vitality, is about understanding the unique demands of each interaction. It's about minimizing the invisible forces that fight against a clock's natural rhythm. When done correctly, this precision lubrication ensures that the pendulum of peace will not only run accurately but will do so for many, many decades to come, quietly marking the passage of time with minimal wear, a testament to its restored integrity and the enduring power of controlled friction. The movement, now fully oiled, pulsed with a renewed, almost eager energy, ready for its final adjustments. With every component of the pendulum of peace gleaming, meticulously cleaned, and precisely lubricated, Elias Vance embarked on the grand finale, reassembly. This was the crescendo of his craft, the moment where hundreds of individual parts, each a miniature marvel in itself, would be brought back together to form a living, breathing mechanism. It was the reverse of disassembly, yet in many ways more demanding, for now the objective was not just to separate but to harmonize. Reassembly is where all the prior steps converge, Elias explained, surveying his trays of pristine components. Every cleaning, every polish, every lubrication, it all leads to this. The challenge isn't just putting it back together, it's putting it back perfectly. Any misalignment, any forgotten washer, any misplaced pivot, and the clock will simply refuse to run, or worse, begin its slow journey back to wear and failure. He began by meticulously reattaching the mainspring barrels to the back plate, ensuring they were correctly positioned to engage with the winding arbors. Then came the intricate dance of the gear train. Each wheel, with its tiny, polished pivots, had to be carefully threaded through the corresponding holes in the back plate. Elias worked with breathtaking patience, his loop firmly in place, his ultrafine tweezers a natural extension of his fingers. He held each wheel, often no larger than a pea, guiding its lower pivot into its hole, then delicately aligning its upper pivot with the hole in the top plate, which was still detached. This was a point of inherent tension. The wheels, once positioned, needed to mesh perfectly with their neighbors, their delicate teeth aligning without force or strain. Elias often had to juggle multiple wheels simultaneously, holding them in precarious positions until the top plate could be gently lowered. The inherent tension is a constant companion during reassembly, he elaborated, his voice low and focused. You're fighting gravity, you're fighting the minute forces of static electricity that want to pull tiny screws astray, and you're fighting the sheer complexity of aligning several dozen pivots into their exact bearing points all at once. Slowly, methodically, the gears of the going train and the strike train began to populate the backplate, creating a three-dimensional tapestry of brass and steel. Once all the lower pivots were in place and the gears meshed, Elias performed a critical check known as end shake and side shake. With a tiny brass probe, he gently lifted each wheel, measuring the microscopic vertical play, end shake, and horizontal play, side shake, within its bearings. Too much play, he explained, and the gears can bind or skip. Too little and friction becomes excessive, causing wear. It must be just right, a few hundredths of a millimeter of freedom, no more, no less. With the gear trains correctly positioned, he carefully lowered the front plate, aligning its pivot holes with the upper pivots of all the wheels. This step was particularly challenging, often requiring multiple attempts. A slight tremor, a moment of impatience, could cause a pivot to bend or fall out of its lower hole, forcing him to lift the plate and begin that section again. But Elias, his hands steady as stone, slowly, gently guided the front plate down, ensuring each pivot found its perfect home. Finally, with a soft click, the two plates came together. Then came the delicate task of inserting the retaining pins and screws that secured the plates. He chose each screw with care, ensuring its original position and thread. He then began the process of retensioning the mainsprings, slowly winding them a few turns, feeling the familiar resistance return, the power once again stored within the mechanism. Next, the escapement, the newly jeweled pallet fork, and the escape wheel was carefully fitted into its precise location. This was the final hurdle for the core mechanism. With a soft click, the pallet engaged the escape wheel. Elias then gently rotated the largest wheel of the going train. With a soft, almost ethereal tick, the escapement moved, then another tock. The rhythm was hesitant at first, but it was there. Finally, the motion worked, the dial and the hands were reattached, followed by the pendulum itself. Elias hung the weighty brass pendulum from its delicate suspension spring, gave it a gentle push, and listened. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The pendulum of peace, once a silent relic, now beat with a strong, even, majestic rhythm. It was a sound that filled the workshop, a testament to perfect alignment and the profound satisfaction of bringing a complex mechanism back to life. The grand puzzle was solved, its pieces now harmonized into a vibrant symphony of time. Having restored the pendulum of peace to its former glory, Elias Vance now turned his attention to a challenge of an entirely different magnitude: the colossal tower clock of St. Jude's Guildhall. This magnificent timepiece, nestled high in the belfry of the town's historic civic building, was not just a mechanism. It was the very heartbeat of the community. For over 2 centuries, its resounding chimes had marked the rhythm of daily life, the start of market day, the closing of shops, the solemn toll for funerals, and the joyous peal for celebrations. Its silence, which had now lasted for nearly 3 months, was a palpable absence, a missing voice that left the townsfolk feeling adrift, disconnected from a fundamental anchor of their collective identity. St. Jude's Guildhall itself was a landmark, its weathered stone facade and soaring clock tower dominating the town square. The clock face, nearly 12 feet in diameter, stared down from its lofty perch, its hands frozen at a perpetual 3:15. A hush had fallen over the square, a strange quiet that underscored the clock's profound significance. Elias had been called by the town council, who understood that this was more than a mere repair. It was a matter of civic morale, a restoration of a cherished symbol. Elias stood in the square, gazing up at the dormant clock face. This, he mused, his voice filled with a quiet respect, is horology on an entirely different scale. A long case clock is intimate, a personal companion. A tower clock, however, is a public servant, a shared experience. Its voice belongs to everyone. The sheer size of the undertaking was immense. This wasn't a mechanism that could be brought to his workbench. His workbench had to come to it. Accessing the clock room in the belfry of St. Jude's was an adventure in itself. Elias ascended a narrow, winding stone staircase, its steps worn smooth by centuries of footfalls, eventually emerging into a vast, cavernous space filled with the silent, monumental machinery of the clock. The air was cool, thick with the scent of old wood, dust, and something metallic. Light filtered in through narrow, arched windows, illuminating dancing motes of dust in the shafts of sun. The scale of the clock's movement was breathtaking. Unlike the delicate brass plates of domestic clocks, the frame of the tower clock was a rugged iron casting, several feet in length and height. Its gears, some over a foot in diameter, were massive, their teeth robust and industrial. The pendulum, a mighty iron rod with a bob the size of a small barrel, hung motionless, reaching nearly 15 feet from its suspension point. The weights, colossal iron cylinders, dangled from thick steel cables, disappearing down into the gloom of the tower, their tremendous power now dormant. Elias walked slowly around the silent Leviathan, a sense of awe mingling with the familiar investigative instinct. He understood the profound responsibility resting on his shoulders. This clock was intrinsically linked to the history of the town. It had chimed during wartime victories, marked moments of national mourning, and heralded the changing seasons for countless generations. Its restoration wasn't just about making gears turn. It was about reinstating a collective memory, bringing back a comforting, reliable rhythm to the community's life. "The principles are the same," Elias articulated, gesturing to the massive escapement, which was easily the size of a small domestic clock movement. Power, gear train, oscillator, escapement. But the forces involved, the sheer mass and inertia, demand a different approach. The wear here is not subtle microscopic abrasion. It's robust, palpable erosion over centuries. He ran a gloved hand over one of the enormous iron gears, feeling the texture of its surface, the faint grooves etched by time and friction. The sheer weight of the pendulum, the immense force exerted by the descending weights, these elements magnified every potential fault, every imperfection. Elias knew this project would test his skills, his endurance, and his fortitude like no other. But as he looked up at the silent, unwavering hands of the clock face, he felt a surge of resolve. The heartbeat of the community was waiting to be revived, and Elias Vance was ready to answer the call. This was his most significant challenge, a testament to the enduring power of mechanical time and the profound role it played in the lives of ordinary people. The journey to the heart of St. Jude's Guildhall's tower clock was not for the faint of heart, nor for those unaccustomed to the dusty, echoing silence of ancient stone. For Elias Vance, it was a familiar pilgrimage, each step a further ascent into the realm of colossal mechanics. The cameras followed, their lenses capturing the drama of the climb, transforming the mundane act of reaching a workplace into an epic adventure. His ascent began at a small, unassuming door tucked away in a shadowed corner of the Guildhall's ground floor. Beyond it lay a narrow, spiraling stone staircase, its treads deeply dished in the center from centuries of countless feet. The air immediately grew cooler, thicker, carrying the faint, earthy scent of old masonry. Elias moved with a practiced ease, his heavy field kit slung comfortably over his shoulder, its leather straps groaning softly with each upward turn. The walls, rough-hewn and uneven, bore the faint marks of masons long departed. Higher he climbed, the spiral tightening, the sense of being cocooned within the ancient tower growing stronger. Light, initially dim from the ground floor, now came only in intermittent shafts from narrow, slit windows, offering fleeting glimpses of the town square shrinking below. The camera zoomed in on Elias's determined face, a quiet concentration etched into his features as he navigated the uneven steps. The silence was profound, broken only by the scrape of his boots and the occasional creak of his kit. After what felt like an interminable climb, the stone staircase abruptly ended, giving way to a different kind of ascent. Before him rose a series of precarious wooden ladders, each one steeper and more weathered than the last. These were not modern, manufactured ladders, but ancient, hand-hewn timber, their rungs smooth and dark with age. Dust motes, disturbed by Elias's approach, danced in the slender beams of light that pierced through tiny ventilation gaps. He tested each rung before trusting his weight, his movements precise and measured, a testament to years of experience in similar challenging environments. The passageways grew progressively narrower, more confined. There were points where Elias had to turn sideways, squeezing his frame and his equipment through tight openings, ducking under low wooden beams that crisscrossed the shaft. The camera, equipped with powerful lights, revealed the intricate cobwebs clinging to every surface, the ghostly etchings of initials carved into the timber by past clock winders and steeple keepers. This was a place rarely seen, a hidden world within the familiar Guildhall, a testament to the dedication of those who maintained the town's time. Finally, after scaling the last ladder, Elias emerged into a larger, more open space, the clock chamber itself. The camera swung around, capturing the dramatic reveal of the gargantuan gears and levers that formed the tower clock's movement. It was a sight that invariably elicited gasps, even from those accustomed to mechanical marvels. The movement was enormous, a formidable assemblage of cast iron and heavy steel. Gears, some taller than Elias's waist, loomed silently, their massive teeth waiting to engage. Levers, thick as a man's arm, extended to engage the chiming hammers. The massive pendulum, its iron bob weighing hundreds of pounds, hung motionless, a silent sentinel. The polished brass escape wheel, despite its size, still retained the intricate precision of its smaller counterparts. The sheer scale was overwhelming, making Elias, a man of average height, appear dwarfed by the mechanical behemoth. Sunlight streamed through the belfry's louvers, casting dramatic shadows and highlighting the texture of the aged iron, the wear on the pivots, and the thick layers of accumulated dust. The air was still, yet one could almost feel the latent power within the silent mechanism, the immense forces waiting to be unleashed. Elias walked among the giants, his hand gently tracing the curve of a main wheel, his eyes already beginning their methodical scan for the source of its long silence. The journey, both physical and metaphorical, was complete. He had ascended to the giants, and now, in this extraordinary space, the true work of awakening the community's heartbeat could begin. The visual impact was undeniable. A lone craftsman, surrounded by a monumental, sleeping mechanism, ready to breathe life back into a silent titan. In the dusty, echoing chamber high within St. Jude's Guildhall, Elias Vance stood dwarfed by the magnificent, silent mechanism of the tower clock. This was horology on an epic scale, a world where the familiar tools and techniques of his bench gave way to a demanding physicality. Taming Goliaths, Elias reflected, his voice a low hum against the cavernous silence, requires not just precision, but strength, ingenuity, and a deep respect for the sheer forces at play. The most immediate indicators of the clock's colossal nature were its immense driving weights. Down in the well of the tower, visible through gaps in the floor, hung two immense iron cylinders. Each one, Elias estimated, weighed well over 500 pounds, perhaps closer to half a ton. These were the power source, suspended from thick steel cables that disappeared upwards into the mechanism. The energy required to drive such a large clock, especially its chiming mechanism, is immense, Elias explained, pointing to the thick cables. These weights provide that power, slowly descending over the course of a week or more. Just raising them after a repair is a significant undertaking, often requiring a specialized winch or even manual effort from multiple people. The sheer potential energy stored in those hanging masses was staggering, a raw, silent force waiting to be harnessed. Then there was the pendulum, a true titan of timekeeping. Stretching nearly 15 feet from its suspension point, the massive iron rod terminated in a bob the size of a small barrel, weighing perhaps 300 pounds. It hung motionless, a silent pillar within the vast chamber. Elias ran his hand over the smooth, cold surface of the bob. This pendulum, he observed, is the very regulator of the town's time. Its length and mass are precisely calculated to beat once every 2 seconds. Moving it, even to simply lift it off its crutch for inspection, requires considerable effort and absolute care. Any distortion to the rod, any imperfection in its suspension, and the accuracy is compromised. The visual of Elias standing beside the pendulum underscored its imposing scale, a stark contrast to the delicate pendulums of domestic clocks. The gears were equally awe-inspiring. Some of the main wheels, crafted from robust cast iron, stood as tall as Elias himself, their teeth thick and formidable. These weren't the finely cut brass wheels of a mantelpiece clock. They were built to withstand immense torque and constant operation for centuries. Elias pointed to the great wheel, nearly a meter in diameter. "Look at the wear here," he indicated, tracing a finger along the hardened iron teeth. "You can see the subtle erosion where it has driven the next pinion for over 200 years. These aren't defects. They're the battle scars of time, testaments to the clock's incredible longevity." The sheer mass of each gear meant that even minor adjustments or removals would require more than just delicate manipulation. They would demand leverage, specialized lifting tools, and considerable physical strength. Working on such massive machinery in the challenging, restricted environment of the belfry added another layer of complexity. The space, though large, was filled with the clock's intricate framework, heavy iron beams, and the looming presence of the massive bells above. Climbing around, under, and over components to access specific parts was physically demanding. The air, cool and often stagnant, was laden with centuries of dust, necessitating masks and specialized lighting. Reaching high pivots required sturdy ladders or even scaffolding, each placement a careful calculation to avoid damaging the delicate mechanisms or risking a fall. "This isn't a clean room environment," Elias acknowledged, wiping a smear of old grease from his gloved hand. "You're constantly aware of the scale, the weight, the potential for mishap. Every movement has to be deliberate, every tool carefully handled. There's no rushing. Every task, from examining a gear's pivot to cleaning a bearing, is amplified by the sheer size of the components and the unforgiving nature of the surroundings." The demands were not just physical, they were mental. The isolation of the clock chamber, the constant awareness of the immense forces, and the knowledge that the entire community awaited the clock's revival created an intense atmosphere. Elias's fortitude, honed by years of intricate work, was continually tested. But amidst the dust and the giants, he found a profound satisfaction in the challenge, a deep connection to the enduring power of these monumental timekeepers. Taming these Goliaths was not just a job, it was a calling. Working on the pendulum of peace in his controlled workshop was a precise, almost surgical art. Working on St. Jude's Guildhall Tower clock, high in its belfry, was a battle against time, gravity, and the relentless forces of nature. "Tower clocks," Elias observed, brushing a thick layer of dust from an iron beam, "don't live in climate-controlled environments. They're exposed to the raw elements, and those elements become part of their ongoing story and their problems." The most pervasive challenge was pervasive dust. Centuries of fine particulate matter, blown in through the belfry's louvers, had settled everywhere, coated every gear, every pivot, every surface, mixing with old, hardened lubricants to form a gritty, abrasive paste. Elias meticulously used specialized brushes, vacuums designed for delicate machinery, and lint-free cloths to clear away the layers of accumulated grime. "Dust isn't just unsightly," he explained, holding up a glass vial containing a sample of the belfry dust. "It's a grinding compound. Each particle, over time, contributes to wear, eroding pivots and enlarging bearing holes. Cleaning here is constant, almost ritualistic." Extreme temperatures also played a significant role. In winter, the unheated belfry became frigid, causing metal components to contract and lubricants to thicken, increasing friction. In summer, the enclosed space could become stiflingly hot, leading to the thinning and evaporation of oils. Elias pointed to the evidence of this thermal cycling. Slight discoloration on some metal parts, and dried, caked residue where lubricants had evaporated. His choice of oils for tower clocks was always paramount, opting for synthetic formulations with an exceptionally wide operating temperature range, ensuring consistent viscosity and performance regardless of the season. Moisture was another constant threat. While the belfry was generally enclosed, driven rain or heavy mists could sometimes penetrate the louvers, leading to surface rust and corrosion on unprotected iron components. Elias identified areas of pitting and oxidation on the main frame, which he carefully cleaned and treated with rust inhibitors. Even a small amount of moisture, he cautioned, can be devastating over time, especially when coupled with old, acidic lubricants. It's a constant battle to keep rust at bay. He showed how he would apply a protective, non-tacky coating to certain exposed iron parts to deter future corrosion, a field repair technique adapted for the harsh environment. Perhaps the most unexpected challenge was local wildlife interference. Birds, particularly pigeons, often found their way into belfries, bringing with them nesting materials, droppings, and sometimes even leaving unfortunate remnants that could fall into the clock's mechanism. Elias discovered old bird nests tucked into crevices of the iron frame and found tiny feather fragments lodged between gear teeth. He emphasized the importance of regular inspections, not just of the mechanism, but of the belfry's structural integrity, ensuring that mesh or screens were properly maintained to deter avian invaders. A single feather, he remarked, picking a tiny, dried fragment from a pivot point, can stop a 1,000-pound clock dead in its tracks. Nature, however small, can be a formidable adversary. Elias demonstrated unique field repair techniques adapted for these conditions. Since he couldn't transport the entire movement back to his workshop, much of the cleaning and lubrication had to be done in situ. He used powerful portable suction devices to clear dust, specialized cleaning fluids that evaporated quickly without residue, and hand polishing techniques that could be performed on massive, immovable components. He showed how he would meticulously apply rust-converting compounds to corroded areas, then meticulously rub them down to prevent further decay. His maintenance strategies extended beyond the immediate repair. He advised the town council on the importance of periodic checks of the belfry's weatherproofing, the integrity of the pigeon netting, and the necessity of semi-annual cleaning regimes to prevent future buildup of dust and debris. Working on a tower clock is a constant dialogue with the elements, Elias concluded, standing amidst the newly cleaned, gleaming iron of the movement. It's a reminder that these magnificent machines, while robust, are also fragile in their precision. Our role is to protect them, to mitigate the relentless forces of nature, and to ensure that their voice, the heartbeat of the community, can continue to chime clearly, year after year, century after century, unbowed by the environment they inhabit. The work was physically taxing, dirty, and demanding, but the reward was the continued life of a community's most cherished timekeeper. High above St. Jude's Guildhall, nestled amongst the massive clock mechanism, lay the true voice of the community, a collection of magnificent bronze bells. Elias Vance's work wasn't just about restoring the timekeeping. It was about reawakening this resonant chorus. The chimes and bells, Elias explained, gazing up at the dark, looming shapes, are more than just noisemakers. They are the public utterance of the clock, the audible rhythm that has shaped the daily lives of this town for generations. Their restoration is the final, most profound step in bringing the clock back to life. There were 3 bells in total, a single, colossal bell for the hourly strike and 2 smaller, yet still substantial, bells for the quarter-hour chimes. Elias approached the largest bell first, its deep, oxidized bronze surface bearing the green patina of centuries. Its sheer size was awe-inspiring, easily over 6 feet in diameter, with a thick, heavy clapper hanging motionless within. "This is the great bell of St. Jude's," Elias announced, tapping it gently with his knuckles, producing a low, resonant thrum. "Cast in 1685, it has announced the hour through wars and peace, through plague and prosperity." He highlighted the historical context of these bells. Each one bore inscriptions, faint but discernible, the date of casting, the name of the foundry, and often a dedication or a prayer. These weren't just metal objects. They were historical documents, tangible links to the past, enduring survivors of previous generations who had heard their very same tones. Their original tuning, achieved by the master bell founders of centuries past, was a blend of art and rudimentary science, often relying on ear and experience. While not as precisely tuned as modern carillons, their collective voice had a unique, rich character that was irreplaceable. Elias then focused on the intricate mechanism responsible for striking them. This was a separate yet integrated part of the tower clock's movement, the strike train. He pointed to the massive levers and rods that extended from the clock movement to the bells. "The strike train is remarkably simple in concept, yet robust in execution," he described. "A series of cams, driven by the clock's power, slowly lift these heavy hammers. When the time is right, the cam releases, and gravity, assisted by the stored energy, drives the hammer to strike the bell." He meticulously inspected the strike hammers themselves. Each one was a heavy cast-iron head with a long, robust shaft. He checked for wear on the pivot points of the hammer mechanisms, ensuring they moved freely. The striking surfaces of the hammers, where they met the bell, showed centuries of impact. He cleaned these areas, ensuring there was no debris that might impede a clean strike. He also examined the wires and ropes leading from the chime barrels to the hammer mechanisms, ensuring they were strong, free of fraying, and properly adjusted. The resonant sound of the chimes was what truly shaped the daily rhythm of the town below. Elias spoke of how the hourly strike acted as a public announcement, a communal point of reference in an age before personal timepieces were ubiquitous. The quarter-hour chimes, a melodic sequence played by the smaller bells, served as subtle, ongoing reminders of the passage of time. "Imagine," Elias mused, "a farmer in his field, a baker in his shop, a child at play. They didn't need to look at a clock. They felt the rhythm of the town through these chimes. The bells were their shared time, their communal anchor." He demonstrated the mechanism of the quarter-hour chimes, a complex sequence of cams and levers that activated the smaller bells in a specific order, playing a short tune. While still dormant, he manually actuated a hammer, causing a deep, slightly muffled bong to echo through the belfry. The sound was immense, physical, vibrating through the very stone of the tower. "The silence of these bells," Elias concluded, his gaze sweeping across the magnificent, waiting structures, "leaves a profound void in the town. It's more than just a lack of sound. It's a loss of continuity, a break in the familiar rhythm of life. When they ring again, it won't just be the sound of a clock. It will be the sound of history revived, of community reconnected, of the very soul of the town singing once more." It's a powerful reminder of how deeply these mechanical giants are woven into the fabric of our shared existence. His final task was to ensure that when the clock was reanimated, its voice would be clear, strong, and true, echoing through the valley for generations to come. With the colossal tower clock of St. Jude's Guildhall nearing its triumphant revival, Elias Vance stepped out of the belfry and down into the bustling town square. The clock's silence had lingered for months, a noticeable void. Now, as he walked among the townsfolk, he sought to understand the deeper resonance of the timepiece, what it truly symbolized for the community. The clock, he knew, was more than just a mechanism. It was the town's pulse, a silent witness to countless lives. He approached an elderly woman, Agnes, who sat on a bench near the Guildhall, her gaze often drifting to the silent clock face. "Agnes," Elias began gently, "the clock will soon be ringing again. What does it mean to you?" Agnes smiled, a gentle warmth in her eyes. "Oh, the clock is everything. My mother used to say it was the steady heart of the town. When I was a little girl, playing hide and seek in the square, the chime of the hour would tell me it was time for tea. Later, it marked my wedding day, the birth of my grandchildren. It's always just been there. When it fell silent, it felt like a part of us went quiet too. A day without the clock striking. It's like a day without the sun rising, somehow less real." For Agnes, the clock was a steadfast timekeeper and a deeply personal repository of cherished childhood memories. Further along, Elias met Thomas, a local shopkeeper busy arranging fresh produce outside his greengrocer. Thomas gestured upwards with a broad hand. "That clock? It's our landmark. You give directions in this town, you always start with the clock tower. Turn left at the Guildhall, just past the clock. It's how visitors find their way, and how we know we're home, no matter how far we've traveled." When it stopped, people were genuinely confused. They'd look up, then look at their watches, almost expecting it to be wrong. It's the fixed point in a changing world, you see. For Thomas, the clock was both a practical and symbolic anchor in the physical layout of the town. A young woman named Sarah, a university student home for a break, offered a different perspective. "For me, the clock is a symbol of continuity," she explained, sipping her coffee. "My grandmother remembers hearing it, my parents remember it, and now I do too. In a world that feels like it's constantly changing, constantly rushing, the clock is this constant, unchanging presence. It connects us to everyone who came before, reminding us that life here has a deeper rhythm, a longer story than just our own." When it stopped, it felt like a bit of that connection was broken, like a page was torn from a very old, very important book. Sarah's reflection spoke to the clock's power as a link across generations. Elias then spoke with Mr. Henderson, the town's elderly historian. Mr. Henderson leaned on his cane, a thoughtful expression on his face. "The clock, Elias, is the town's communal significance. It's the sound of our collective life. Its chimes have announced royal proclamations, the end of wars, the beginning of new eras. It regulated the working day when factories were still bustling, and it brought comfort during the dark hours of the night. It binds us together, regardless of our individual lives. We all hear the same chime at the same moment. It's a shared experience, a shared consciousness. Really, when it fell silent, there was a subtle disquiet, a feeling of something essential being lost." His words eloquently captured the clock's role as a unifying force, shaping the shared experience of the town. As Elias concluded his conversations, a deep sense of purpose settled within him. He wasn't just repairing a machine. He was restoring a vital part of the town's soul. The clock, silent for so long, had left a noticeable void, a quiet yearning. Its impending return was anticipated not just with curiosity, but with a profound sense of relief and homecoming. The interviews underscored that for the residents of St. Jude's, the tower clock was far more than a mere time-telling device. It was a living monument, a repository of history, a source of comfort, and the undeniable heartbeat of their community. Elias carried these voices with him as he prepared for the final moments of the clock's grand reawakening. Having restored the majestic tower clock of St. Jude's Guildhall and breathed life back into the pendulum of peace, Elias Vance embarked on a different kind of horological journey, one that took him beyond the familiar confines of his workbench and into the rarefied air of a private collection. This was a world where passion, history, and meticulous preservation converged, offering a glimpse into the vast diversity and artistic excellence within horology. His destination: the secluded estate of Mr. Alastair Finch, a renowned collector whose passion for timepieces was legendary. Upon arriving at Mr. Finch's meticulously maintained estate, Elias was ushered into a grand, softly lit gallery. It was a space designed entirely around the display of its precious inhabitants. Glass cases, climate-controlled and subtly illuminated, lined the walls, each holding a treasure. "Welcome, Elias," Mr. Finch greeted, a man whose quiet enthusiasm for his collection was infectious. "To my small corner of time." Elias's eyes widened, taking in the spectacle. This wasn't just a collection. It was a museum, a curated journey through the evolution of timekeeping. His gaze first fell upon a series of exquisitely intricate pocket watches, ranging from early 18th century verge fusee movements to highly complicated 19th century chronographs. Each watch was a miniature universe of gears, springs, and jewels. He leaned in, observing a particular piece, its open-faced movement revealing bridges engraved with florid patterns, and blued steel screws catching the light. "This, for instance," Mr. Finch pointed to a particularly fine piece, "is a minute repeater from the 1880s. See the tiny levers? It chimes the hours, quarters, and minutes on demand. A marvel of miniaturization." Elias marveled at the craftsmanship, imagining the skilled hands that had painstakingly assembled such delicate mechanisms. The mastery required to pack so much functionality into a case barely 2 inches in diameter. The diversity was astounding. Hunters, half-hunters, open-faced, grand complications with perpetual calendars and moon phases, each a testament to a different facet of human ingenuity. Further along, Elias encountered a display dedicated to robust marine chronometers. These were starkly different from the ornate pocket watches. Housed in gimbal-mounted wooden boxes, designed to keep their movements perfectly level regardless of the ship's motion, they were instruments of pure, unadulterated function. Elias recognized the familiar spring detent escapement, a design revered for its accuracy in adverse conditions. These, Mr. Finch explained, were the navigator's salvation. Before them, determining longitude at sea was guesswork. These chronometers, painstakingly accurate even on rolling seas, allowed ships to pinpoint their position, revolutionizing exploration and trade. Elias admired their unembellished, almost brutalist beauty, appreciating the single-minded focus on precision and reliability. He noted the heavy brass balance wheels, the robust plates, and the clear, legible dials designed for quick reading in challenging conditions. They were machines of purpose, their story interwoven with the history of global exploration. Finally, the gallery curved into an alcove dedicated to ornate mantel clocks. These were works of art as much as timekeepers. Bronze statues of mythical figures often adorned their cases, while intricate marquetry and elaborate gilding spoke of an era when clocks were central decorative statements in grand homes. Elias examined a magnificent French Empire mantel clock, its movement housed within a gilded bronze chariot pulled by 2 horses. The enamel dial, flawlessly preserved, presented a pristine canvas for its elegant brigette hands. "The artistry here is breathtaking," Elias commented, tracing a finger along a delicate bronze scrollwork. "It speaks of a time when the pursuit of precise timekeeping was inseparable from aesthetic beauty." Mr. Finch nodded in agreement. Indeed, each piece tells a story, not just of its own engineering, but of the era that produced it, the science, the art, the societal values. This segment underscored the vast diversity and artistic excellence within horology. From the personal intimacy of a pocket watch to the life-saving accuracy of a marine chronometer, to the decorative grandeur of a mantel clock, Elias witnessed the breadth of human endeavor dedicated to measuring time. It was a powerful reminder that horology was not a singular craft, but a multifaceted discipline encompassing engineering, metallurgy, art, design, and a relentless pursuit of perfection. Each piece a tangible link to a rich and varied past. It's a world without end, isn't it? Elias finally said, a profound respect in his voice. Each clock a unique voice, a chapter in the great story of time. In the quiet solitude of his workshop, surrounded by the ticking symphony of countless mechanisms, Elias Vance often found himself pondering something far grander than gears and escapements. Time, reconsidered. He had spent his life bringing clocks back to life, but his work had also instilled in him a profound, almost mystical understanding of the very concept they measured. We build these intricate machines, Elias began, his gaze drifting to a slowly swinging pendulum, to mark something that is ultimately immeasurable. Time isn't a river that flows or a line we walk. It's a dimension, a fundamental aspect of existence that we can only ever attempt to quantify. He spoke of humanity's enduring fascination with time. From sundials to atomic clocks, the drive to measure and understand time had been a constant throughout history. Why do we feel such a deep need to measure it? He mused. Perhaps because it's the one thing we all share, yet experience so uniquely. It's the ultimate equalizer, and yet the ultimate differentiator. He suggested that this fascination stemmed from our own finitude, our awareness of beginnings and ends. Clocks, in their relentless march, served as tangible, comforting, yet sometimes chilling reminders of this fundamental truth. Elias delved into the subjective experience of time. A child's summer holiday stretches into an eternity, he offered as an example. While an adult's year flashes by, a moment of joy feels fleeting, a moment of pain, interminable. Our internal clocks rarely align with the external, mechanical one. He reflected on how emotions, focus, and age all bend and warp our perception of duration. My own work, for instance, can make an hour feel like minutes when I'm deeply immersed, or drag into an eternity when I'm battling a stubborn screw. The clock on the wall remains constant, but my internal sense of it is entirely fluid. This contrast between the objective certainty of the mechanical clock and the subjective fluidity of human experience was a recurring theme in his thoughts. Clocks, Elias proposed, serve as our tangible attempts to measure the immeasurable. They give us a framework, a shared language for something inherently abstract. Without them, how would we coordinate, plan, remember? They are the agreed-upon rhythm that allows society to function, to build, to dream. Yet, he cautioned against becoming too enslaved by them. A clock tells us what time it is, but it doesn't tell us how to use it. His philosophy touched upon memory and anticipation. Memory, he reflected, is our way of holding onto past moments, of giving them a continuing existence even as the clock relentlessly moves forward. This is how we create our personal histories. Anticipation, on the other hand, is our engagement with future moments, drawing them into the present with hope or trepidation. Both are deeply intertwined with our understanding of time, yet neither is truly bound by its strict measurement. He felt that clocks, in a way, provided the framework for these human experiences, giving us the when for our what. But for Elias, the most profound insight was the profound importance of the present moment. My work demands that I live absolutely in the present, he said, turning a tiny gear in his fingers. Each adjustment, each precise cut, requires full attention to now. If my mind wanders to past mistakes or future deadlines, I risk damaging the mechanism. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson these clocks teach us. He continued, the pendulum swings, moment to moment, never dwelling on the previous swing, never anticipating the next, simply executing its perfect arc. It's a profound metaphor for living. We meticulously measure time, we organize our lives by it, but ultimately, the only time we truly possess, the only time we can truly experience and act within, is this fleeting, precious instant. Elias looked around his workshop, at the countless clocks, some ticking, some silent, all marking time in their own unique ways. They remind us that time is a gift, he concluded, a gentle reverence in his voice. And while we build magnificent machines to track its passage, the real art is in how we choose to fill the moments it grants us. Clocks don't just tell time. They invite us to reflect on it, to appreciate its ephemeral beauty, and to live more fully within its embrace. His hands, accustomed to the delicate dance of gears, now seemed to hold a deeper understanding of the grand ballet of existence itself. The perpetual hum of Elias Vance's workshop, a symphony of gentle ticking and whirring, was now punctuated by a new, energetic presence. Maya, the apprentice, bright, enthusiastic, and possessing a keen mind, Maya represented the future of a craft rooted deeply in the past. Elias, having spent decades as a solitary master, had finally decided to pass the baton, recognizing the importance of preserving horology's intricate knowledge. Maya was introduced with a vibrant curiosity. Her first scene showed her carefully, almost reverently, holding a dismantled clock movement, her brow furrowed in concentration as she tried to identify each minuscule component. Elias observed her from across the workbench, a faint smile playing on his lips. "It's a language, Maya," he'd said gently, "and you're learning its alphabet." Their dynamic quickly became apparent. Elias's patient instruction balanced with Maya's moments of struggle and eventual breakthroughs. One afternoon, Elias tasked her with meticulously cleaning and reassembling a simple, early 20th century movement, a seemingly straightforward task that quickly exposed the immense patience and precision required. Maya, with her naturally quick hands, initially moved with a youthful eagerness. She cleaned the plates diligently, her eyes bright with determination. However, the reassembly proved to be a formidable adversary. The escapement, that delicate heart of the clock, repeatedly defeated her. She struggled to align the pallet fork with the escape wheel, her fingers, usually so nimble, feeling suddenly clumsy and enormous. The tiny screws slipped from her tweezers, rolling frustratingly across the workbench. Elias watched, offering only minimal guidance. He knew that true understanding often emerged from the crucible of personal struggle. "See how the banking pins cradle the pallet?" Elias finally interjected, leaning over her shoulder, his voice calm. "The balance staff pivots are finer than a human hair. Any force, any misalignment, and you introduce friction or worse, bend a pivot. Let the parts tell you where they want to go." He demonstrated, his large, experienced hands moving with an almost imperceptible grace, guiding the pallet into its perfect position. Maya watched, mesmerized, then tried again. Her brow was furrowed, a faint sheen of perspiration on her forehead, but her eyes held a spark of renewed determination. This was a classic moment of struggle for Maya. She spent another hour, repeating the delicate process, her initial frustration slowly giving way to a focused, almost meditative patience. Each time a screw refused to seat or a pivot refused to align, she would take a deep breath, reevaluate, and try again, mirroring the same mental fortitude Elias himself possessed. Elias, true to his nature, did not interfere unless absolutely necessary, allowing her the space to learn through doing. Then came the eventual breakthrough. With a tiny, almost inaudible click, the escapement finally settled into place. Maya's face lit up, a gasp of triumph escaping her lips. She then carefully, deliberately, inserted the balance wheel, and with a gentle push, set it in motion. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The steady beat filled the small corner of the workshop. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was alive. Maya looked up at Elias, a radiant smile on her face. "I did it!" she exclaimed, her voice a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. Elias returned her smile, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "You did," he affirmed, a sense of pride in his voice. "And you learned more in that hour of frustration than you would in a week of me simply telling you how. Horology demands respect, Maya. It demands patience. And it demands that you listen to the mechanism." Their dynamic was not just about instruction. It was about shared passion. Maya would often ask probing questions, pushing Elias to articulate nuances of the craft he might have taken for granted. Elias, in turn, found a renewed energy in explaining the why behind the how, seeing the ancient craft through fresh eyes. This craft, Elias had told her on her first day, is a dialogue between man and machine across centuries. And you, Maya, are about to join that conversation. As the documentary progressed, Maya's hands grew steadier, her eyes sharper, her understanding deeper. She was not just learning a trade. She was inheriting a legacy, poised to carry the intricate art of timekeeping into the future, a testament to the enduring power of mentorship and the timeless appeal of mechanical marvels. In Elias Vance's workshop, where the rhythmic tick-tock of mechanical movements was the dominant sound, a conversation between him and his apprentice, Maya, naturally drifted towards the profound differences between mechanical versus digital, enduring value. The ubiquity of digital time displays in modern life, on phones, computers, microwaves, posed a question that Elias often considered. What inherent qualities do mechanical clocks possess that allow them to not only survive but thrive in our hyperdigital age? Maya, Elias began, holding up a beautifully finished brass gear, its teeth catching the light. "Look at this. Feel the weight, the coldness of the metal. This isn't just a component. It's the result of material science, metallurgy, and centuries of engineering refinement. Now, think about the time on your phone screen." Maya nodded, contemplating the contrast. "Digital is precise, instant, ubiquitous," she offered. "But it feels ephemeral, like light and code. This feels solid, real." "Precisely," Elias affirmed. "That's one of their core, enduring qualities. A tangible connection to craftsmanship. Each of these parts, even the smallest screw, has been designed, often machined, and assembled by human hands. There's an undeniable human touch to a mechanical clock. You can trace the lineage of its invention, the evolution of its escapement, the choices made by its creator. A digital display, while complex in its own right, presents a black box. You don't see the electrons flowing. You just see the result." He continued, emphasizing the tangible link to history. "Every mechanical clock, especially an antique one, carries a story. This verge fusee movement here," he gestured to a piece on his bench, "tells us about the challenges of portable timekeeping in the 18th century, the ingenuity required before constant force springs were perfected. It speaks of the era it was made in, the people who owned it, the events it witnessed. A digital clock, by its very nature, is present-focused. It doesn't carry the weight of generations." Maya picked up a delicate balance cock, its intricate engraving gleaming. "It's like looking at a piece of art, isn't it? The sheer skill in making something so beautiful, just to be hidden inside a case. And that brings us to unique aesthetic beauty," Elias agreed. "Mechanical clocks, whether a pocket watch with a galoche dial, a grand long case with its polished brass weights, or a tower clock with its monumental gears, are inherently beautiful objects. The movement itself, with its oscillating balance, its intricate gear trains, its jewel bearings, it's a kinetic sculpture. There's a wonder in seeing the mechanics of time unfurl before your eyes. Digital displays are functional, often sleek, but rarely possess the warmth, the texture, or the inherent artistry of a finely crafted mechanical timepiece. He explained that the beauty extended beyond the visible. There's also the sound. The rhythmic tick-tock of a mechanical clock is a comfort, a natural pulse in a world increasingly filled with electronic bleeps and chirps. It's an auditory anchor that connects us to something ancient and organic. So, it's not just about telling time, Maya mused. It's about how time is told. Exactly, Elias confirmed. Digital gives us the cold, hard numbers. Mechanical clocks give us a sense of the passage of time. You see the hands sweep, the balance will oscillate. You hear the beat. It's a more immersive, more poetic experience. It reminds us that time isn't just a series of discrete units, but a continuous, unfolding phenomenon. He then touched upon a deeper philosophical point. In our hyperdigital age, we are constantly bombarded by information, by distractions. Mechanical clocks, in their focused, singular purpose, offer a kind of antidote. They are an invitation to slow down, to appreciate the craftsmanship, to reflect on the nature of time itself. They're a quiet rebellion against the instantaneous, disposable nature of much of our modern world. Their enduring value lies in their ability to connect us, tangibly and emotionally, to concepts that transcend mere utility, to artistry, to history, to the very rhythm of life. Maya looked from her mentor to the intricate movement on the workbench, a newfound appreciation in her eyes. So, they're not just clocks, she concluded. They're monuments to human ingenuity and reminders of something profound. Elias smiled. They are, Maya. They absolutely are. The workshop continued its timeless symphony, a testament to the enduring magic of gears, springs, and the measured march of moments. In the quiet sanctuary of his workshop, amidst the tools, the gears, and the gentle ticking, Elias Vance often spoke of something less tangible than spring tension or pivot friction. The intangible connection, an emotional bond. For him, the clocks he restored were far more than inert objects. They were living entities, imbued with their own narratives, distinct personalities, and an almost spiritual essence that resonated deeply within him. It's difficult to explain to someone who doesn't spend their days with them, Elias began, carefully re-oiling a tiny jewel bearing. But each clock has a soul. Not in a literal human sense, of course, but in a way that transcends mere mechanics. They speak to me if you listen closely enough. He described this connection as a profound empathy. When a clock comes into my workshop, silent and broken, it feels almost like a patient in distress. Its silence isn't just a lack of sound. It's a profound absence, a void where its voice should be. My role isn't just to fix the gears. It's to find its rhythm again, to coax its spirit back to life. He viewed the repair process as a form of communication, a dialogue between his hands and the mechanism, uncovering its secrets, understanding its ailments. Elias articulated how each clock possessed its own unique narrative. Take the pendulum of peace, he offered as an example. It carried the story of a family, of generations gathered around its chimes. Or the Guildhall Tower clock. It holds the collective memory of an entire town, centuries of events witnessed by its unwavering face. When I work on them, I feel a connection to those narratives, to the lives they touched. I'm not just servicing a machine. I'm participating in its ongoing story. He believed that the marks of time, the wear on a pivot, the subtle patina on a brass plate were not imperfections, but chapters in that story evidence of a life lived. He also spoke of their distinct personalities. No two clocks are exactly alike, even if they're from the same maker, Elias explained. One might have a robust, almost defiant beat, another a delicate, almost whispering tick. Some are temperamental, resisting repair with subtle quirks, while others seem to welcome the intervention, almost sighing with relief as their ailments are addressed. He treated each one as an individual, recognizing its idiosyncrasies, understanding that a blanket approach rarely yielded the best results. This personalization of his subjects underscored his deep respect for their unique existence. This emotional bond, Elias admitted, could be intense. There are moments of immense frustration, of course, when a problem defies easy solution. But there are also moments of profound connection, a kind of resonance when a particularly stubborn movement finally hums back to life. It's more than just professional satisfaction. It's a deep, quiet joy, a feeling of having done right by something that deserved to be heard again. He wasn't just solving a puzzle. He was liberating a voice. He saw the clocks as teachers, too. They teach me patience, precision, and the beauty of continuous, unwavering motion. They remind me of the delicate balance required for things to function, and the profound impact of even the smallest misalignment. In a world that often values speed and disposability, they stand as enduring monuments to craftsmanship and longevity, and they impart those values to anyone who truly listens. For Elias, the journey from a silent, inert object to a vibrant, ticking presence was nothing short of a transformation. When a clock leaves my workshop, its voice restored, its personality reasserted, I feel a sense of completion, but also a twinge of farewell. It's like sending a child out into the world, knowing it will continue its journey, its narrative, and connect with new lives. The intangible connection was not just about the moment of repair, but about the continuing life of the timepiece, carrying its essence forward. Ultimately, Elias's philosophy revealed a man who saw beyond the brass and steel. For him, clocks were not just mechanisms for measuring time. They were sentient repositories of history, art, and the human spirit, each one a unique, living presence that demanded respect, understanding, and a deep, abiding love. His emotional bond with them was the very heart of his craft, elevating it from a mere trade to a profound, almost spiritual calling. As the gentle tick-tock of restored mechanisms filled his workshop, Elias Vance often found himself contemplating the deeper meaning of his life's work. It wasn't merely about mending broken gears or polishing tarnished brass. It was about preserving more than time, a legacy of skill. In an increasingly automated world, the safeguarding of specialized crafts like horology took on a profound significance, touching upon fundamental aspects of human ingenuity, historical continuity, and the inherent satisfaction of hands-on creation. When I look at a complex movement, Elias began, gesturing to an intricate pocket watch on his bench, I don't just see metal and jewels. I see the countless hours of human thought, the experimentation, the failures and triumphs of generations of craftspeople who perfected these designs. To let such knowledge die out would be to lose a piece of our collective brilliance. He emphasized that the meticulous understanding of mechanical principles, the ability to work with such precision, and the problem-solving required were all facets of maintaining human ingenuity. Each repair was not just a fix, but a re-engagement with that ingenuity, a living dialogue with the minds of the past. He reflected on how much of this ingenuity was embedded in the doing, not just the knowing. You can read all the books you like, study all the diagrams, he explained, but until your hands have felt the subtle resistance of a pivot or the precise tension of a mainspring, that knowledge remains abstract. The skill is embodied, passed down through touch and demonstration. This tacit knowledge, acquired through years of practice, was a fragile thing, easily lost if not actively taught and preserved. The craft also served as a crucial link for ensuring historical continuity. Each clock, Elias articulated, is a tangible artifact of its time. It tells us about the materials, the technology, and the aesthetics of a bygone era. If these clocks fall silent, and the ability to revive them disappears, then a vital part of our material history goes with them. We lose the living connection to our past, relying solely on written records or static museum pieces. For Elias, a ticking clock was a living piece of history, its sound a continuous echo from the past into the present. Repairing it was an act of keeping that historical dialogue alive, allowing future generations to experience these pieces as they were meant to be experienced. He highlighted how this continuity extended beyond the objects themselves into the realm of human experience. Imagine a town without its tower clock, as St. Jude's was for a while. The rhythm of life shifts, a connection to generations past is severed. Restoring that clock wasn't just about repairing a machine. It was about reinstating a communal memory, a shared cultural touchstone. Finally, Elias spoke with quiet conviction about the profound satisfaction derived from hands-on creation. In a world where so much work is abstract, digital, or assembly line-driven, the craft of horology offered a complete, tangible cycle of creation and restoration. There's an undeniable joy, he said, a warm smile gracing his features, in taking something broken, understanding its fundamental flaw, and then, through the skill of your hands and the clarity of your mind, bringing it back to perfect working order. The satisfaction is immense, a deep sense of accomplishment that resonates within you. He felt that this kind of satisfaction was increasingly rare and vital. It's the satisfaction of true mastery, of knowing you can affect change, that your skill has a direct, visible, and audible impact. In a world of fleeting trends, this kind of work grounds you, connects you to something real, something that will endure. The process was often slow, demanding, and frustrating, but the reward, the pure, unadulterated pleasure of seeing a complex mechanism spring back to life under his touch, was unparalleled. Elias saw himself as a guardian of this legacy, and Maya as its future. My hope, he concluded, looking towards his apprentice, diligently working at her own bench, is not just that these clocks continue to tick, but that the skills, the ingenuity, the historical awareness, and the deep human satisfaction of working with one's hands continue to be valued, passed down, and cherished. Because in preserving this craft, we are, in essence, preserving a vital part of what it means to be human. The workshop, with its symphony of time, was a testament to this enduring belief. In the timeless rhythm of Elias Vance's workshop, where centuries-old tools often lay beside modern diagnostic equipment, the conversation naturally turned to the future ticks on innovation meets tradition. Elias, a staunch traditionalist at heart, was also a pragmatic craftsman who understood that the survival of horology in the 21st century might depend on a judicious embrace of emerging technologies. His apprentice, Maya, with her digital native sensibilities, was particularly keen on exploring this nexus. Some purists might balk, Elias began, gesturing to a schematic drawing he had meticulously penned by hand. But tradition isn't about stagnation. It's about preserving core principles while adapting to new realities. The question isn't if innovation will meet tradition, but how it will support and strengthen it. Maya, holding a worn brass plate from an unknown movement, immediately saw the potential. What if we had a lost part, a gear with a unique tooth profile, or a bespoke lever for a one-off clock? How do we recreate it precisely without the original blueprints? Elias nodded. Traditionally, it would involve painstaking measurement, careful reverse engineering by eye and caliper, often requiring several iterations to get it right. It's a skill that takes decades to master. He then pointed to a small, sophisticated device on a shelf. But this, Maya, changes the game. He was referring to 3D scanning for lost schematics and components. Imagine we have a broken wheel or only half of a unique cam. We can place it under the scanner, and it can create a precise digital model capturing every dimension, every curve, every tooth profile down to microns. From that digital model, we can then produce detailed CAD drawings and even use 3D printing or CNC machining to fabricate an exact replica. He explained that this technology could be invaluable for obscure or extremely rare clocks where original documentation had been lost to time, effectively allowing them to reconstruct missing historical information with unparalleled accuracy. It's not replacing the craft, Maya clarified, but accelerating the prototyping and manufacturing of parts that might otherwise be impossible to recreate or take months to handmake. Exactly, Elias confirmed. It's a tool, an extension of our capabilities. The knowledge of how the part should function, the understanding of the material properties, the careful finishing, that still requires the human touch and the traditional skills. He envisioned a future where a horologist might use 3D scanning to capture a movement, then digitally test different escapement modifications, and finally fabricate the ideal component. They also discussed advanced material science. Historically, Elias explained, we relied on brass, steel, and specific alloys, but corrosion, wear, and lubricant breakdown are constant battles, particularly in harsh environments like tower clocks. He spoke of how modern materials, such as self-lubricating polymers for certain non-critical bearings, or specialized ceramic coatings for high-wear components, could significantly extend the lifespan and reduce the maintenance needs of mechanical movements. Think about lubricants too, Maya added. Synthetic oils that maintain viscosity across extreme temperature ranges, or even solid lubricants that could drastically improve performance and longevity, especially for those Goliaths in the belfries. Elias agreed. The goal isn't to replace the aesthetic or the fundamental mechanics, but to enhance reliability and precision. If a new alloy can resist corrosion for centuries where traditional steel might pit in decades, it's a responsible choice for preservation. The core idea, they concluded, was about securing the future viability of horology. By intelligently integrating new technologies, the craft could become more efficient, more capable of tackling complex restoration challenges, and more appealing to a new generation of apprentices like Maya. It wasn't about building fully digital clocks, but about using digital tools to better understand, preserve, and even recreate the mechanical wonders of the past. Our challenge, Elias summarized, is to use these innovations to support the traditional skills, not supplant them. The heart of horology will always be the intricate dance of gears and springs, the delicate balance of an escapement. But if 3D scanning can help us recreate a lost wheel, or advanced materials can ensure a clock runs for another 200 years with less wear, then we embrace it. It's about ensuring that the tick-tock continues, resonating through centuries to come, sustained by both ancient wisdom and modern ingenuity. The future, for Elias and Maya, was not a threat to tradition, but a powerful ally in its preservation. In the soft glow of the late afternoon sun filtering through the workshop window, illuminating dust motes dancing above his workbench, Elias Vance sat in a moment of quiet reflection. The rhythmic tick-tock of the clocks around him was a comforting chorus, a constant companion throughout a lifetime dedicated to their intricate secrets. This was an intimate space for Elias's echoes, a life's dedication, a moment where he shared his deepest feelings about the craft, his concerns, his hopes, and the profound satisfaction it had brought him. You know, Maya, Elias began, his voice a low, thoughtful murmur. There are times, particularly in the quieter hours, when I feel a pang of worry for this craft. He articulated his quiet concerns for the craft's continuation. It's not a path many young people choose these days. The allure of instant gratification, the draw of digital, the sheer patience and dedication required. It's a demanding mistress, Horology. Will there be enough hands, enough passionate hearts, to carry it forward when my generation is gone? Will these beautiful machines, imbued with such history and ingenuity, eventually fall silent, waiting for skills that no longer exist? He spoke of the immense personal investment, the years of solitary study, the seemingly endless pursuit of perfection. It's not just a job, it's a way of life, almost a monastic devotion, and that kind of dedication is rare. His concern was not for himself, but for the legacy, for the continuity of a skill that he believed was essential to human culture. Yet, alongside this concern, was a profound and optimistic hope for Maya's journey. "And then I see you," he said, turning to her with a gentle smile. "Your enthusiasm, your keen mind, your willingness to grapple with frustration and still return with renewed determination. You embody the very spirit this craft needs. You are the answer to those quiet concerns, a living testament that the flame can be passed on." He expressed his hopes not just for her technical mastery, but for her growth as a horologist. "I hope you find the same deep satisfaction, the same quiet joy in resurrecting these mechanical wonders. I hope you develop your own voice in the craft, your own unique understanding. Don't be afraid to innovate, to question, to find your own path, while always honoring the foundational principles. The craft is alive, Maya, and it will continue to evolve through people like you." He wanted her to understand that true mastery wasn't just about flawless execution, but about a personal, emotional connection to the work. Finally, Elias spoke of the deep, abiding satisfaction found in a lifetime dedicated to his passion. His eyes, which had witnessed the internal workings of thousands of clocks, now held a soft, reflective gaze. There's a unique fulfillment, a peace, that comes from working with your hands and your mind in concert, bringing something beautiful and functional back to life. It's a quiet satisfaction, not one that shouts, but one that settles deep within your bones. He recalled specific moments. The first time a particularly stubborn tower clock roared back to life, its chimes echoing across a grateful town. The discovery of a rare, intricate escapement he'd never seen before. The simple pleasure of a perfectly polished plate reflecting the light. These aren't grand, public victories, he mused, but they are profound personal triumphs. They affirm your purpose, your contribution. "My life has been a rich one," Elias concluded, his voice imbued with a quiet contentment. "It hasn't been without its challenges, its moments of doubt. But to dedicate oneself entirely to something you truly love, to spend your days in pursuit of mastery, to feel the rhythm of time in your very hands, there's no greater reward. These clocks, in their constant, unwavering tick, have been my companions, my teachers, and my greatest joy." The workshop fell silent for a moment, save for the gentle tick-tock that was its constant breath. Maya looked at her mentor, a man whose hands bore the marks of his dedication, and understood. Elias Vance's life was not merely measured by the minutes and hours his clocks kept, but by the profound and enduring echoes of skill, passion, and purpose he had instilled into every ticking mechanism, and now into her. His legacy wasn't just in the restored clocks, but in the heart and mind of the apprentice who would carry his torch forward. Maya sat at her workbench, a delicate mainspring in her tweezers, listening intently to Elias's reflections. His concerns about the craft's future resonated with her, but they also ignited a spark of determination, shaping Maya's vision, the next generation's path. She understood the weight of the legacy she was inheriting, and while she cherished the traditions, she also saw opportunities to infuse them with her own modern perspectives and renewed energy. "Elias," Maya began, carefully securing the mainspring, "I understand your worries. is a demanding path, but I also see immense potential. My vision for carrying forward the horological tradition isn't just about preserving what is. It's about making it relevant, exciting, and accessible for the future. Her first aspiration was to champion the craft's visibility and accessibility. Many people simply don't know what horology entails, or how fascinating it can be. We live in an age of instant information. I want to use that to our advantage. She envisioned creating engaging digital content, short, educational videos showcasing the intricate dance of gears, live streams of complex repairs, and online workshops breaking down basic principles. Imagine a high school student scrolling through social media, stumbling upon a time-lapse of a clock movement being assembled. That could spark a lifelong interest, just like seeing your workshop sparked mine. She believed in demystifying the craft, breaking down the perceived barriers of its ancient nature. Maya also aimed to foster a more collaborative and community-driven approach. You've always worked with incredible focus, Elias, often in solitude. While that dedication is inspiring, I think we can build a stronger network. A digital forum where horologists worldwide can share rare schematics, troubleshoot challenging repairs, and even collaborate on difficult restorations. Imagine leveraging collective intelligence to solve a problem that one person might struggle with for months. She believed that sharing knowledge, rather than guarding it, would ultimately strengthen the craft and prevent specialized skills from being lost. She also wanted to explore new avenues for sustainability and innovation within preservation. We're talking about historical artifacts, Maya explained, but the materials we use for repairs can also evolve. You mentioned advanced materials. I want to research and implement them responsibly, always respecting the original integrity but enhancing longevity where appropriate. Could we develop biodegradable cleaning solutions? Or more environmentally friendly ways to source raw materials for new parts? Her modern perspective brought an ecological consciousness to a craft often focused solely on mechanical function. Beyond preservation, Maya's vision extended to contemporary applications and artistic expression. Mechanical clocks don't just have to be antiques. What about modern artists who want to integrate bespoke mechanical movements into their sculptures? Or architects who want to commission a unique, grand-scale public clock that uses traditional mechanisms but with a contemporary aesthetic? She saw opportunities for horology to transcend its traditional boundaries, becoming a vibrant part of modern art and design, attracting a new generation of patrons and creators. It's about showing people that mechanical timekeeping isn't just a relic of the past, Maya passionately stated, but a living, breathing art form and an engineering marvel that continues to have relevance. It's a testament to human ingenuity that can inspire in completely new ways. Elias listened, a quiet pride blooming in his chest. He saw not just an apprentice, but a visionary. "So, you're not just carrying the baton, Maya," he said, a rare twinkle in his eye. "You're aiming to build a whole new racetrack for it." Maya smiled, a radiant blend of confidence and humility. "I want to honor the past, Elias, but also to build a bridge to the future, to ensure that the beautiful tick-tock of these incredible machines continues to echo, not just in workshops, but across the digital landscape, in new artistic forms, and in the minds of a new generation who discover the magic of time, one gear at a time." Her vision was clear: to blend reverence for tradition with the boundless possibilities of the modern world, ensuring that the legacy of skill Elias had dedicated his life to would not just endure, but flourish. The final scene opens not with a flourish, but with a series of quiet, intimate moments, a serene and powerful concluding montage of Elias Vance's life's work. The workshop, once the epicenter of intricate repair, now fades into the background, replaced by the vivid reality of clocks, large and small, once silent, now steadily ticking, chiming, and accurately marking time in their diverse settings. The montage begins with a close-up on the familiar face of the great clock of St. Jude's Guildhall. The minute hand sweeps with unwavering precision, reaching the 12. A deep, resonant bong reverberates, followed by 4 more, each chime a powerful affirmation of its resurrected voice. The camera pulls back, showing the clock tower standing sentinel over the bustling town square, its chimes echoing over children playing, shopkeepers arranging their wares, and Agnes on her familiar bench, looking up with a soft, knowing smile. The clock, restored by Elias, is not just marking time. It is marking the pulse of a community, a living connection between past and present. Transition to a dimly lit study, where a magnificent French Empire mantel clock, adorned with its gilded bronze chariot, sits on a mahogany fireplace. Its pendulum swings with a hypnotic, rhythmic tick-tock, a soft counterpoint to the crackling fire. The light catches the flawless enamel dial, the elegant brigade hands moving with aristocratic grace. This clock, once seized by rust and inertia, now purrs with quiet authority, a testament to Elias's delicate touch and Mr. Finch's passion for preservation. Its beauty is inherent, a restored piece of kinetic art in a private, cherished space. Next, a glimpse into a humble farmhouse kitchen. On a simple wooden shelf, an early 20th century wall clock, its oak case gleaming, steadily ticks away. Its familiar chimes announce the quarter hour, a gentle, melodic sequence. Maya's hands, now steadier and more confident, are seen setting the time, a quiet moment of apprenticeship coming full circle. This clock, a representation of countless domestic timekeepers, underscores the personal significance of Elias's work, providing a steadfast rhythm to daily routines and shared meals. The scene shifts to the harsh, yet beautiful, environment of a ship's bridge. A robust marine chronometer, encased in its gimbaled wooden box, sits securely. The camera focuses on its spring detent escapement, oscillating with unflappable precision, a beacon of accuracy even amidst the rolling waves. A captain checks its reading, a subtle nod of reliance passing over his face. This chronometer, once prone to drift, now performs its vital duty with renewed vigor, a symbol of scientific endeavor and the enduring need for accurate navigation, a testament to its inherent beauty of restored motion in a demanding setting. A quick succession of varied shots follows, a delicate pocket watch being slipped into a waistcoat pocket, its tiny tick a personal secret, a grand long case clock standing tall in a stately home, its deep clang marking the hour with gravitas, a whimsical cuckoo clock emerging from its little door with a cheerful cuckoo cuckoo. Each movement, each sound, is distinct, yet united by the common thread of Elias's dedication. Throughout this montage, the emphasis is on enduring continuity. These clocks, spanning centuries in their design and purpose, are not just resurrected, but reintegrated into the flow of life. They connect us to the past, anchor us in the present, and point us towards the future. Their steady, unwavering presence acts as a counterpoint to the fleeting nature of human existence, a comforting reminder of a constant, reliable rhythm. The final shot returns to the Guildhall clock tower. The sun sets, casting long shadows across the square, but the clock face remains illuminated, its hands moving with silent, unyielding purpose. The faint echo of its last chime hangs in the air, slowly fading. It's a powerful statement of resilience, of craftsmanship, and of the profound human need to mark time, to organize existence, and to find beauty in the precision of motion. The clock, and indeed the entire craft of horology, is not merely ticking. It is a timeless beat, echoing Elias's life, resonating through Maya's burgeoning career, and ensuring that the grand story of time will continue to be told, one magnificent chime, one delicate tick at a time. The workshop lights are dimmed, the tools neatly arrayed, and the familiar chorus of ticking clocks fills the air, a living testament to a life well spent. Elias Vance, or perhaps a reflective narrator imbued with his quiet wisdom, steps forward for a final reflection. Time marches on. The grand narrative of St. Jude's clock, of Maya's burgeoning journey, and of Elias's own dedication culminates in a poignant contemplation on the profound nature of time itself, the vital importance of legacy, and the quiet, persistent beauty of objects that endure through dedicated human stewardship. Time, the voice begins, a gentle resonance, is the most fundamental currency of our existence, yet it remains, in its deepest essence, a mystery. We build these intricate devices to measure it, to segment it, to bring order to its relentless flow. But what we truly measure is not time itself, but our passage through it. And in that passage, we create stories, build communities, and leave behind echoes of our ingenuity. The reflection deepens, contemplating the profound nature of time. We perceive time as linear, moving from past to future. Yet, in the heart of a mechanical clock, time is a series of recurring oscillations, a perpetual present. The pendulum swings back and forth, each beat a fresh beginning, a quiet affirmation of continuation. It's a powerful metaphor for life itself, a constant renewal, a relentless march forward, yet always rooted in the cyclical rhythms of existence. The narrator posits that clocks, in their very function, offer a physical embodiment of this philosophical dance, a tangible manifestation of a concept both universal and deeply personal. The narrative shifts to the vital importance of legacy. What does it mean to leave something behind? For me, it has been to leave these mechanisms ticking, to ensure that their voices continue to be heard long after my own voice falls silent. Legacy isn't just about what you achieve. It's about what you enable others to achieve, what knowledge you pass on, what traditions you help to perpetuate. The image of Maya, her hands now confidently engaged in delicate repair, becomes central to this thought. Her journey is not just her own. It is an extension of Elias's, a living bridge across generations. The legacy is not merely mechanical. It is human, a torch passed from one dedicated hand to another. Every tool I've sharpened, every gear I've fashioned, every movement I've restored, it's all part of this continuous thread. The reflection continues. It's a quiet resistance against the ephemeral, against the notion that things, once broken, are simply discarded. It's a belief that some things are worth the painstaking effort of renewal, because in their enduring, they carry something vital about who we are and where we came from. Finally, the reflection turns to the quiet, persistent beauty of objects that endure through dedicated human stewardship. Look around this workshop, or indeed at the clocks scattered across the town. They are not merely functional. They possess a beauty that comes from their history, their craftsmanship, and their resilience. They are testaments to human care, to the hours of dedication poured into their creation and their maintenance. This beauty, the narrator suggests, is not flashy or fleeting, but deep and abiding, earned through time and careful attention. A ticking clock, faithfully marking the hours, is a profound statement, the voice concludes. It speaks of order in chaos, of continuity in change, of precision in a world of approximations. And it endures not through magic, but through the unwavering human commitment to its purpose, to its elegance, to its very right to exist. The camera slowly pans across the workshop one last time, settling on a solitary clock ticking steadily on a shelf, its pendulum swinging in perfect, timeless rhythm. The light fades entirely, leaving only the sound, a persistent, comforting tick-tock. It's a quiet assurance that time will indeed march on, and thanks to dedicated hands and enduring passion, the beat of these magnificent mechanical hearts will continue to echo for generations yet to come, a testament to a beautiful, timeless legacy. In the elite culinary circles of Paris, where Michelin stars dictated destinies and chefs vied for the approval of discerning critics, Antoine the Palate du Bois reigned supreme. His pronouncements could elevate a humble bistro to a gastronomic temple or condemn a grand restaurant to oblivion. Yet, this revered critic lived a life of quiet luxury, never ostentatious. His wealth seemingly a byproduct of pure, unblemished taste. How did a man whose life revolved around the pursuit of culinary perfection quietly orchestrate a vast empire of hidden profits and controlled reputations? And what subtle, almost imperceptible flaw in the very ingredients he championed eventually allowed the natural world itself to expose his grand deception? Antoine du Bois moved through the hallowed halls of France's finest restaurants with an air of profound authority. His slender fingers would delicately prod a fillet, his nose would inhale the nuanced aromas, and his eyes, sharp and discerning, would survey every plate with an almost surgical precision. His reviews, published in prestigious journals and guides, were gospel, capable of filling reservations books for months or emptying them overnight. To the public, he was the guardian of French gastronomy, a man of unimpeachable taste and integrity. But Antoine, beneath his veneer of scholarly connoisseurship, was a master manipulator of the culinary ecosystem, building a silent fortune on controlled access and manufactured scarcity. His method was an ingenious blend of critical influence and supply chain dominance. Antoine didn't just review, he invested. Quietly, through layers of holding companies and trusted associates, he became a silent partner in struggling, but promising, restaurants. He would then bestow upon them a coveted Michelin star or a series of glowing reviews, propelling them to fame. Conversely, he would deliver scathing critiques to rivals, highlighting minute flaws with devastating precision, effectively driving them out of business or pressuring them into selling their operations at a bargain price, often to entities he secretly controlled. But his true leverage lay in a specific, almost mythical commodity, the tuber Melanosporum regalis, a rare, intensely aromatic black truffle found only in a few pristine, ancient forests of central France and notoriously difficult to cultivate. Antoine claimed to have exclusive access to these truffles through a network of trusted, traditional truffiers. He supplied these authentic truffles to his favored restaurants at exorbitant prices, making vast profits while ensuring his establishments maintained an unparalleled air of exclusivity and quality. These exclusive truffles became Antoine's signature, a mark of true culinary excellence that separated the elite from the merely good. The money generated from the inflated prices of these truffles, as well as the quiet dividends from his secretly owned restaurants, flowed through a complex web of offshore accounts and shell companies disguised as agricultural investments or consultancy fees. His personal life remained comfortably elegant but understated, reinforcing his image as a man devoted purely to the art of cuisine. For decades, Antoine's system was unassailable. The mystique of the truffle market, the inherent subjectivity of taste, and his unassailable reputation as a critic made questioning his methods almost unthinkable. Chefs, desperate for his approval and access to his rare ingredients, dared not complain about the prices. Auditors focused on declared profits, not the true origin of a fungus. The first faint, earthy scent of discord in Antoine's perfectly composed symphony emerged from an unexpected source. Dr. Juliette Dubois, no relation, a young, brilliant mycologist and forensic food scientist at the National Museum of Natural History. Juliette was pioneering advanced DNA sequencing and isotopic analysis techniques to determine the precise geographical origin and genetic lineage of wild fungi, particularly truffles. Her research aimed to combat the growing problem of counterfeit or mislabeled rare food products. She began to notice a peculiar, statistically improbable genetic homogeneity across several batches of tuber Melanosporum regalis being supplied to Paris's most exclusive, highly rated restaurants that all, coincidentally, received glowing reviews from Antoine Dubois. The truffles, purportedly sourced from diverse, wild forest locations, should have shown natural genetic variations reflecting their individual growing conditions. But these did not. They were almost genetically identical. Juliet's investigation was a quiet, meticulous pursuit of scientific truth. She acquired samples of these exclusive truffles through various means, often posing as a culinary student or a researcher. Her DNA analysis revealed a startling truth. The truffles were not wild. They were, in fact, cultivated, grown in specialized, controlled environments, not in ancient forests. Even more damning, their isotopic signature, which reveals environmental conditions like soil type and rainfall, pointed not to central France, but to a vast commercial truffle farm in a remote region of Spain, a farm that had recently invested heavily in advanced cultivation techniques. The poetic misstep was Antoine's overzealous desire for perfect consistency in his rare truffles, a consistency that only cultivation could achieve, thereby erasing the very natural variations that would have confirmed their wild, prestigious origin. When the French financial police, armed with Dr. Dubois's irrefutable scientific evidence, finally approached Antoine Dubois, he was in a Michelin-starred kitchen, overseeing a chef meticulously shaving paper-thin slices of his truffles onto a dish. There was no dramatic confrontation, no public spectacle. Instead, two quiet detectives and Dr. Dubois herself arrived. Antoine, ever composed, offered them a taste of the truffle. They didn't shout accusations. They simply laid out Juliet's forensic reports, the DNA analyses proving cultivation, the isotopic data revealing the Spanish origin, and the undeniable link between his glowing reviews and the restaurants exclusively using his mass-produced, falsely labeled truffles. Antoine looked at the data, his expression slowly shifting from composed arrogance to a quiet, profound realization. His world, built on the illusion of impeccable taste and the silent manipulation of an entire culinary ecosystem, had finally been unraveled, not by a single act of betrayal, but by the relentless pursuit of an unseen truth, exposed by the very essence of the natural world he claimed to champion.